Hey everyone, this is Pete.
And Scott.
Well, we are here with what should be a brand new episode, but what with all of our travels and planning out some live events, we got a little backlogged recently. So what we're going to do is re-release an older episode for the first time ever.
We are going back to Superman 2 with our friend Billy Roach. Episode 98, Pete. We had not hit 100 yet when this came out.
Episode 98.
And this is a really good episode. I was listening to it a few weeks ago when I was driving to the dentist, and I was like, dang, this is a really fun episode. It might be one of my favorites that we've ever done.
Do you have the original release date of episode 98?
May 6, 2021.
Wow, how about that?
Episode 98, yeah.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Well, like we said, we were a little bit backlogged with traveling and planning out the live events, so we weren't able to record a new one this week.
Jawbreaker was a lot of fun last night.
It was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
So we are dropping this re-release episode kind of in honor of the casting of the new Superman.
Yeah, the new James Gunn Superman.
Right.
So we got David Corenswet, and I believe he is from Hollywood, the Ryan Murphy series Hollywood. He's like the lead of that.
Absolutely.
And Rachel Brosnahan as Lois Lane.
The marvelous Mrs. Maisel herself.
I wasn't quite sure about her as Lois Lane, but
no,
I think
she's perfect.
I think they look really good together.
Yeah, they look great together. And I think she's going to be great in that role. So without further ado, everyone, take a trip back, step into the time machine, and enjoy Superman 2.
The extended cut, too.
Ooh. All right, everybody. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Superman 2. The adventure continues with the three villains from Krypton. Each one with the same powers as Superman. Each one dedicated to violence against mankind.
Think of it. 3 supervillains. Or 4 if you count him twice.
The adventure continues in Paris with Lois Lane.
I believe this is your floor.
And the romance continues. The adventure continues in Washington. The world is on the brink of destruction.
Superman, can you hear me?
And Metropolis is in ruins.
Is there no one on this planet to even challenge me?
Superman!
General, would you care to step outside?
Revenge.
Revenge!
Revenge!
Now we're cooking, huh?
The big one's just as strong as Superman.
If you've only seen the first part, you haven't seen the best part. The adventure continues in Superman 2.
Welcome back to the show, everybody.
That was an epic trailer.
It was.
So good.
Classic superhero trailer from the 80s. I love it. Everybody out there listening, my name's Pete.
And I'm Scott, and these are the movies that made us gay.
Hey.
Episode 98.
Oh, my God.
We're almost there.
We are turning the corner on 100 episodes, everybody. Thank you so much for listening.
I'm excited for this one.
Yes, indeed. I
know you've been excited to do this movie for a while.
Yes, this movie and I go back a long ways. I'm very excited about hitting on Superman 2 finally. So, Scott, why don't you introduce our guest and talk a little bit about our movie?
So we watched Superman 2, released June 19th, 1981, with our friend and prior guest of the show. You might remember him from his Lost Boys episode.
Yes,
our favorite straight, Billy Roach.
Welcome back.
Thank you. So glad to be here.
And, I mean, you're one of my friends that is like the Superman expert. Of just, you know everything about Superman. So that's why I wanted to have you on this episode.
Oh, I'm honored.
Yeah. Superman as a character, as a comic book character, is very interesting. I mean, he's kind of brought back into public favor with the Snyder Cut being released on HBO Max.
A lot of kids of the 70s and 80s adore these movies and the Superman character.
Yeah,
I've kind of observed.
Yeah, I feel like lately, the past few years, comic book movies they've just been dominated by Marvel.
Yeah,
and with the Zack Snyder version of Superman coming in, it's one way for kids to get introduced. But now there's a lot of other Superman material out there on television.
Oh my gosh,
a little bit about what's the name of the show?
Superman and Lois on the CW. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
If you love this version of Superman, you kind of want that wholesome corniness.
Yeah,
you get a little bit of that from Superman.
That
and Lois.
Superman is very, very handsome too.
Oh, Tyler Hoechlin.
I still don't know. The jury is still out on if that on-set paparazzi photo of his huge ass.
If that ass is padded.
the bubble butt.
Yeah.
I don't even know if that's real or not, because Snopes or debunked or whatever. I think it has been who are those guys on the Discovery Channel with the crazy mustaches that
Mythbusters.
It has been myth busted that those pictures of Tom Holland's ass are fake. So.
Oh,
so I don't
know that. Why did you just crush the dream?
Yeah, those Tom Holland, very well built young man, but those particular pictures of his huge ass are not.
He's not quite packing that ass.
No.
Okay.
So I'm wondering if those pictures of Tyler Hoechlin might have been enhanced a little bit for the gays and for the fans out there. But hey, we've got in this movie Christopher Reeve, one specimen
so dreamy
of a human in as Superman. Jeez Louise.
So what was both of your introductions to this movie? Because me personally, I did not grow up on the Richard Donner Superman movies.
Right.
I definitely know that they were there, and I was very familiar with him, but I just never really watched these movies growing up, partly because I just think that the Tim Burton Batman movies just sort of dominated anything superhero if you were a kid in the early 90s. So what about you two? Bill, you go first.
Oh, yeah. I mean, absolutely. I remember loving those Burton films as well. I mean, you get to those kind of darker superhero films like Batman 89, even the first Ninja Turtles movie.
Oh, yeah.
For kids of that age were just phenomenal. I can't remember the first time I ever saw Superman or even Superman 2. This film, it probably came across when I was a kid on television, and I was just enamored immediately.
Yeah.
It's so fun, so kind of cheesy, bright. There's everything that kids want, and a lot of things that are missing from modern superhero films.
Definitely.
And as a kid growing up with no father, my father died when I was very young. I want to say 3 months old. And I had a very supportive, loving, strong mother, and she did everything she could. But for a young boy growing up without a father, Superman kind of became a father figure for me.
I love that.
And it's just ever since then I've been drawn to the character. I love the character immensely. And it's really weird because if you look at my spectrum of interests, Superman is the one thing that doesn't really fit. It's like vampires, goth, horror. It's then Superman. It's my shining beacon of hope over here that I still look to this day. Sometimes when I'm having a bad day, it's just I kind of center and I think about Superman and I just kind of let things go.
Yeah, totally. That's great. That's awesome. Again, I'm a little older. I always say this every time than most of our guests and some of our listeners.
I get it. You're old,
but I think Pete and I are closer to the same.
Yeah,
age.
Actually. And so when this came out, I was a kid. I was a small kid. My dad had a Betamax player, and my uncle, my dad's brother, was a teenager when I was a little kid, 6 or 7, around that age. He was a teenager, and we would rent movies all the time. And I specifically remember watching Superman 2 at home. I remember, the big fight scene in New York City, throwing Zod into the Coca-Cola sign, the neon Coca-Cola sign.
The Marlboro cigarettes truck.
Well, I don't specifically remember that.
The sponsors.
Yeah.
Could you imagine if that were to happen in a movie now?
A huge cigarette truck. Yeah. But I specifically remember watching these at home from a very young age. And we rented movies all the time, and, Karate Kid and all those movies that we couldn't buy movies then because they were exorbitantly
They would have been
expensive
like
to buy.
$500 for
not quite. They're like
one Baymax
They were
tape.
like $90.
Sure.
Right. Which in 1984 was a lot.
I
so
like to
we
think
weren't
that they were $500.
Yeah, so we weren't buying the Goonies, but we were renting them all the time. And I know that my dad and my uncle really loved movies and going to the movies and renting them. So it was a big thing sitting down with the family and watching these. And so when my sister and I would spend, our weekends or whatever with our dad, we would do that. And I specifically remember watching Superman and seeing Christopher Reeve, just thinking like, okay, I think I'm a little different.
Sure.
Because to me, as a little kid, 5 or 6 year old kid, I mean, he didn't look like anybody in my family. Mm-hmm. He didn't look like any of the like adult male figures that were around me at my school or anybody in my family. So I was just like, oh my goodness, this person is like, he is from a different gene pool than than me, and being just kind of like fascinated by how he looked, his presence on screen, and then kind of like also because there was this duality to him. He had his Clark persona where he wore glasses and was a little bit more timid and just kind of like shy kind of a person. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, I really love that. But really, he's actually Superman. And that was like, as a little kid, that keys into a lot of shit, Then with like Superman 3, my sister and I loved that movie because Richard Pryor was, even as children, 6, 7, 8 years old, we thought Richard Pryor was funny. I mean, we weren't watching Live on the Sunset Strip, so we weren't listening to him talk about like hookers and cocaine. But we saw The Toy and we saw Brewster's Millions and we saw these movies where to us Richard Pryor was very funny. So we loved Superman 3. Going back and watching it as an adult.
Yeah, Superman 3 might have been my intro to Richard Pryor.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a whole different
story.
You
always tell that story of watching that movie with your sister and at the end of it,
where the woman gets sucked into the machine and gets turned into a robot.
Yeah.
What the hell?
You love that scene.
That scene is nightmare fuel.
It is absolute nightmare fuel.
These two children watching it in the 80s and just losing their mind.
We would just scream and laugh and scream and run around the living room just screaming because like this woman, why is she turning into a robot? Like this makes no sense at all.
Oh, there's so many great things in all of these films that make no sense, but I still love them so much.
I mean, that's the thing is that there wasn't a template for doing movies like this.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I think that just Warner Brothers really went out on a limb with Richard Donner in the first movie that studios just weren't making movies like this ever.
Well, okay, so Superman or comic book movies at the time were difficult because special effects, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how are they going to make this guy fly? How are they going to make him do half of the stuff that he does? And in 1979, 78, 79, when the first movie came out?
Yeah.
I mean, the whole, like, they built the marketing campaign on the fact that the special effects work.
Yeah.
The tagline was...
You'll believe a man can fly.
You'll believe a man can fly.
Yeah.
So the whole thing was like, we got it. Finally, we figured it out. And... I mean, now when we watch it, it's like, oh, okay, he's in front of a screen. We get it. But I feel like movie watchers are more, I mean, I hate to say sophisticated, but in the sense that we kind of know how all that stuff works now.
Yeah, but I will say that this movie has something that I think a lot of the modern superhero films don't have when you deal with characters like Superman that fly. There's an elegance to Chris Reeve when you see him landing.
Yeah.
When you know it's obviously wire work. He's so light, and when he lands, it's perfection. Where you see Superman movies talking about the Snyder Cut or the Zack Snyder, even Superman and Lois, which I love. When Superman lands, he lands with like a thud. It's so fast, and you see the CG effect of like the ground breaking. And Chris Reeves had this like elegance about it.
You can tell that
it was fantastic.
It's done well in Supergirl too. We have done Supergirl on this show.
Yeah.
Oh,
a little over a year ago.
Mm-hmm. I listened and was screaming at my phone when I was listening to that episode because I love Supergirl. It's so cheesy, so campy. I love it.
And the wire work in that movie is really well done.
Very good. Yeah.
And it's a different type of wire work in that movie. They're doing more acrobatic stuff. And I watched. So we have a DVD set of Superman, Superman 2, 3, 4.
I think we picked it up at Best Buy.
And it also has Superman Returns in there. But what it is, it's a DVD combination. It's a 5-film collection, but it's weird, right? It feels like it actually is what they did is they picked the discs off of like other like multi-disc sets and threw them in there. So Superman 1 is the extended cut of Superman. The version of Superman 2 is the Donner cut. So Superman the movie, it says disc 2 expanded
That's
edition.
funny. So it's quite literally picked from
And see,
a
I have
set.
this set, but in the thicker
The
box
full set, yeah.
and it has Superman the expanded cut, Superman 2, Superman the Donner cut,
Right.
3, 4, and then Returns.
So all this has is the Donner cut for Superman 2. But it doesn't have any special features. It's bare bones. I think this whole thing cost us like $17. So I went to YouTube to find the special features from the set that probably you have.
Yeah, I have a bonus disc with my set. Yeah.
So Behind the Cape, I think it's called.
Yeah.
So they talk about specifically Chris Reeve in the rig because they,
Sure.
the screen tests of getting the flight screen tests are funny because they started off. Didn't they just start off shooting something at like a toy out of a cannon or something?
Yeah, something like that to get like trajectory or speed. It's very strange.
Yeah, they tried everything because they didn't know what to do. It was the late 70s and they never got anybody to fly.
I know they used a lot of the stuff that they used for Star Wars, and I think the figure was to figure out lighting. And
Sure.
So.
But they did a lot of stuff with stunt guys and just the people that worked behind the scenes, putting them in these rigs, flying them, and all that. They said when Chris Reeve came in, they said that he had done like paragliding or something.
Interesting. Okay.
So he knew how to keep his body straight.
Sure.
And kind of like flat.
It's a lot of upper body strength.
So he was able to actually hold himself out in this flat, like prone position in the rig.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, oh, okay. He knows how to handle his body. So this work looks a lot better than we thought it was going to look. So that's really interesting that it kind of just like his casting just kind of worked so well in all these areas. Like it just kind of fit perfectly.
Yeah, for someone who in the first Superman film they initially told no.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And originally he was turned down for the role because his hair was too light.
Really?
Yeah, his hair, he's like a dirty blonde, like light brunette. And there's a story about how he ran downstairs across the street to a store and he bought shoe polish, put it in his hair, and then came back. And like one of his early screen tests, you can kind of see it dripping from the hairline.
I love that.
And he did it again,
I
and it
love
was just
that.
the persistence, and then he initially got the job after that, which was fantastic.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine anyone else.
No, yeah.
Especially for
thing.
that time in the late 70s. Like, who would they have?
They offered Redford.
Yeah, they offered Redford, and I think
Redford never would have done it, though.
But he's a blonde. How are they going to
Yeah.
tell Reeves he's...
And I think they went out for Stallone as well.
Oh, my God.
Like, I guess when you put... I guess maybe Stallone from the late 70s.
I get Stallone as like young, really like built, dark hair.
Yeah.
It's a little too on the nose.
But that would have been a wild.
That would have been
film.
crazy.
The performance, yeah, because when you get Sly, you don't just get the look, you get the voice.
Yeah.
I would have loved to have seen him try to do Clark Kent.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, Robert Redford is really interesting choice. I mean, I get it. He's very, like, all-American, but...
Huge star in the 1970s, too.
Yeah. And they originally wanted to go for a name before they decided to go for kind of more of an up-and-comer.
Yeah, where I think the
Chris
draw with the Chris Reeves film was the technology, and the name that got everybody to the theater was Brando.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
How much did they pay Brando for those scenes of Superman?
You know, and I don't even remember the dollar amount, but I know he got paid more than everyone else in that film. And
Yeah.
he was in it for 10 minutes,
Like,
5 minutes.
made
Yeah.
like $1 million or something a minute.
And was very difficult to work with.
But let me say this, what I learned in my research, we were talking a little bit about the symbol, that it was Brando's idea that the Superman S shield is the house crest of Jor-El.
Sure.
So he's wearing it on Krypton, or Krypton, as he pronounces it. And that's kind of been woven into like the mythology, right?
Yeah, and then that is now the current like reasoning for it. It's not
Yeah.
an S for Superman. It's the shield of the House of El.
Yeah.
Which
So-
was, when you said Krypton, You said that's the way he pronounces it. That's also the way Zod pronounces it, too.
Yes,
which
yeah.
I thought was hilarious.
I
forgot about the Brando pronouncing.
I don't know if Brando is just doing like a faux like British accent kind of a thing, because I know like he's kooky, right? We know Marlon Brando's kind of a kook. His performance in the Dr. Moreau.
Mm-hmm.
That performance is crazy. He's doing like a weird accent
movie and
there.
Performance.
So I think he's just like, oh, okay, I'm Jarrell. I'm from this other planet. I'm making British.
I'm making distinct choices.
Yeah, and I think that's where he came up with Krypton, because Lara says it. She pronounces it that way. Yeah. And I'm sure they probably just took the lead from Brando for that.
It's like half British.
Yeah, totally.
It's very weird.
I also read that they offered the role of Superman to a couple of people before they landed on Christopher Reeve. I think Dustin Hoffman was in there.
No. Too nerdy.
Great Clark Kent.
Great Clark Kent, but I think he also, when they gave it, or when they offered it to him, he said he said he'd do Lex Luthor. But then that didn't work out either.
That would have been very interesting.
Yes.
I like Gene Hackman's Lex Luthor, though. I like that Gene Hackman just can't even be bothered shaving his head. Like, I'm not doing that.
No. Well, I also love that Gene Hackman's Lex Luthor just swings for the fences. It's so great. Mm-hmm. And he's just so obsessed with land.
Always a real estate scheme with that one.
Always a real estate scheme. Every film.
I like that when he asked for the continent of Australia, and I'm like, the whole continent? Are you going to make everyone move out and just live there by yourself?
Well, why would you want to just have a little city?
Are you going to be like king of Australia? Like, what is your game plan, dude?
But why Australia?
Yeah.
I don't get it.
It's the biggest island in the world. I think that's his angle.
I think that's it. Because he could have been like, I will be the king of Hawaii. But it's like, that's it? That's all you got?
But then later in the film, when he gives another morsel to Zod, he asks for Cuba.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. On the other side of the world, yeah.
Summer home?
Totally. Or winter home, because you'll be in Australia. We have to talk so much about Superman, the movie, because
it's like the first 10 minutes of this movie.
Well, also they were kind of, the intention was that they shot them initially.
Were they back to back?
Yeah, way before.
They shot them all together.
Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Wow. Donner was filming 2 while he was filming 1.
Mm-hmm.
And as the story goes, he went really over budget and behind schedule because he's doing 2 movies back to back. And he was fired mid-production of 2 and replaced, right?
Yes,
by Richard Lester?
Richard Lester. Yes. Who had worked with the Salkinds before on 3 Musketeers, which he's known for doing back-to-back films because he did 3 and 4 Musketeers back-to-back.
Okay. And he worked on Superman the movie, right? Wasn't he there for doing in some capacity, or did he just get pulled in?
I don't believe Lester was involved at all in the first film.
Okay. So the original intention was, we're shooting them both back to back at the same time. We're going to release 1, and either a year or less than a year later, we're going to release 2.
Matrix style.
Right.
Yeah, I think the original intent was 6 months later.
6 months. Yeah. And at the end of Superman the movie, it says, like, Superman will be back, whatever.
Mario Puzo from The Godfather wrote both scripts.
Yes.
That's crazy that this movie is written by the guy that wrote The Godfather.
I mean, he's just adapting like material at this point.
Well, he's adapting. I mean, he's pulling from comic books, but a lot of the source material that we know for Superman now, it was actually created in this movie.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of comics, like, they reinvented Superman in the 80s by launching a new title, Man of Steel by John Byrne, and a lot of that integrated what they did in the Reeves films.
Okay.
And I would take it that a character like General Zod, while probably was in the comics, probably anything that came after this movie, you're sort of modeling it after Terence Stamp.
After this movie, 100%.
Yeah.
Before this movie, he wasn't a completely different character, but the look and a lot of the intentions were different.
I love that performance. We'll talk about it later.
Yeah. And the look of the Kryptonian, like, villains, these 3.
So cool.
Mega 70s. I love it.
Yeah.
That super low V.
Yes.
With a little bit of the chest hair popping out.
That's what's interesting, because the 2 male characters have this like super sexy, like almost like a gi, like karate uniform, and it's completely open. But Ursa, the one late, like hers is
Sarah
not
Douglas.
as revealing.
She has her
chest.
she has her cutouts on her thighs.
Yeah, they make up for it by having the cutouts on the arms and the thighs.
She has her drag cutouts. Do you know what the character of Ursa reminds me of? Do you remember on All Stars 1 of Drag Race where they had to come out with drag superheroes? This is something that would have been on the main stage of that show.
Yeah. She would have been with Melanina and Firecrotch.
She has those beautiful eyebrows.
Her face is so contoured.
It's super fierce.
Yeah. And the wings.
Yeah.
Her makeup is fantastic.
She's got that liquid eyeliner with the little wings on the side. So crazy. I love it. Yeah.
I would love those outfits though. They're so like the satin and pleather, deep V's.
There's patent leather elements. There's like satiny elements. It's crazy. High boots.
Now,
there's a lot going on.
In prep for this, I told you I watched both cuts of the film.
Yeah.
I mean, we're primarily talking about the Lester, but if you go back and you watch the Donner cut, it's almost like they used a little bit of CG to make that patent leather red. They added a little bit of color to it. Like, it's not in every scene, but in the first scene where they arrive to Planet Houston,
right?
He's when he comes out of the water, it's very noticeable that his patent leather thigh-high boots are red.
We'll have to watch that. Okay, all right.
It kind of comes and goes.
Yeah.
But it's like they tried to add an element of color to these.
Yeah.
Just like, I wouldn't even say drab all black because the patent leather and the satin, it's like contrasting.
Gives it some pizzazz with that shine. I loved those scenes when they first land on Planet Houston and Ursa's discovering her like heat vision. Love it. As a kid, I was like,
she picks up the snake.
Fucking cool.
Yeah. She picks up the snake and then burns it.
Yeah.
But that leads to one of my favorite things. She looks at Zod and she says, "We have powers beyond belief on this planet." And then Zod, matter of fact, goes, "We all do."
We all do.
And then just walks away.
Duh.
Turns and walks away.
Yeah.
How Terence Stamp underplays that performance is so brilliant. Just because Zod is just unimpressed by all of planet Earth.
By everything.
And just every single thing that comes out of, like, Zod is so unimpressed with everything that he's being told.
Yeah. Everything he's being told and everything he sees is like a child's toy.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Because Ursa is like, "Oh, look at this. Oh, look at that." She's commenting on stuff for like, the audience that's like, screenwriting right there. She's like letting us know that they weren't aware of these powers because they get thrown into the Phantom Zone before Krypton is destroyed.
Yeah.
Yes.
So they don't even know about like, Jor-El sending his son off in the Christmas Star off to like, to Earth to save the humans.
I love that ship design.
That star, it's super
so
cool.
Good.
I mean, calling it the Christmas Star, it's like, I feel like if you're a Superman kind of like super fan, you kind of have to know about all of the like religious themes, Siegel and Schuster.
Yeah, Siegel and Schuster.
Siegel and Schuster.
There's a Christ allegory with Superman.
What?
Oh.
But the thing is, the creators of Superman are, two Jewish men. I feel like the whole thing is like, they were either they're immigrants or they're like sons of, first generation sons of immigrants.
I believe they're first generation, and they were trying to tell the ultimate immigrant story with Superman.
And Superman, the whole thing that like people don't get, or is that Superman is this all-American character, and he stands for truth, justice, and the American way, and all that stuff. But he's an immigrant. He's an alien, and it's very like he's from another planet and all that. But when you really look into it, it's like it's this allegory that these people are writing to talk about their experience as Jews living in the United States in like the 40s.
That's the thing, is that it's
Yeah.
not like I just kind of lazily go to a Christ allegory because that's kind of the first thing that you think of, that Superman is this very like Jesus figure.
Yeah.
But you're right, that's really interesting.
Well, it's very easy to compare him to Christ when
Yeah.
you're looking at Zack Snyder's Man of Steel.
Yes.
And Jor-El's telling him you can save them all, and he floats out into space in a cross shape.
Yeah.
It's very easy to get there.
I think
That's interesting.
didn't Bryan Singer do the same floating in space in the cross shape in Superman Returns?
Yeah, he flew up into the sun.
Yeah.
And he did the cross shape.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same.
So the Bryan Singer Superman Returns was one of my first introductions to Superman 2 as a property. Before we get too into the movie, I just remember the pre-production of Superman Returns. There was so much media about it. There was so much about the casting of it, the laundry list of actors that were reading for both Superman and Lois Lane.
Yeah, well, and also the Donner cut. Superman Returns is the reason we were able to have the Donner cut and any footage of Brando at all, because they made a deal with the estate after Brando had passed away. But yeah, there's a lot of hubbub behind Superman Returns.
And when that teaser came out that was narrated by Brando, like I knew that Brando was in the first movie, but I remember sitting in the theater just being like, wow.
Well, I mean, for someone who grew up on these movies,
that's impressive.
Hearing Brando, you're like, it's kind of like what they're doing now with films like Halloween, where they're like, all movies made in between don't matter.
Yeah,
it's like, oh wait, so this is a sequel to Superman 2.
Yeah.
So we're going back.
It's a very out of the box idea for a sequel, especially in the mid 2000s,
a reboot,
2006. Like a soft reboot.
Mm-hmm. It works in some ways, and in other ways, I'm like, it's not as successful. I don't. With the casting, I feel like Brandon Routh is great.
Kate Bosworth is pretty miscast as Lois Lane.
She's not giving me Margot Kidder.
But see, here's the thing: is I feel like with that film, I don't feel like Brandon Routh was cast as Clark. Brandon Routh was cast as Christopher Reeve as Clark.
Yeah.
Same thing with Bosworth, that she's playing Margot Kidder, and it shines big through Kevin Spacey as he's playing Gene Hackman, playing Lex Luthor.
Totally. Going back a little bit, why isn't Brando in any of the Lester version at all?
It was a dispute that he had with the Salkinds.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And they were like, well, you know what, cut him out. They didn't want to pay him royalties.
Sure. Or he wanted an additional fee on top of his fee from the first movie.
Just like Connery in Highlander. Like he was like, I'll film more, but you got to pay me more.
Right.
And they just said, no royalties, we're not paying you anything extra. And you can see there's a lot of meat. If you go and watch the Donner cut, there's a lot of meat on them bones.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of Brando footage that was not in the first film.
Sure. Okay, that's interesting. And you know that what they did in this in the Lester cut, when they start the movie, it kind of rewinds all of Superman the movie and starts again at the trial of Zod and his two cronies, Ursa and what is his name, the tall one? Non. But rather than Jor-El coming out and kind of trying them, it's kind of, for a second there, it's kind of shown from their point of view. It shows them kind of like...
You get to see them break in. You get to see them do some of the dirty deeds that they're being punished for.
Yes, yeah. But then, again, rather than showing... They show the trial, but they don't show any of Jor-El. It's just kind of voiceover by Kryptonian elders.
I love those Kryptonian
elders. You three criminals have been caught in a further act of seditious treason. General Zod... Your only feeling was contempt for our society. Your only desire was to command. Ursa, the only feeling you showed was for your vicious general. Your only wish to rule at his side. Don, you are as without thought as you are without voice. This council has no hesitation in proclaiming you all guilty. Guilty. Guilty.
The big floating heads. Yeah, so good. The effect of the three of them in the flying album cover, like flying through space, so cool.
Love it.
I mean, that's like iconic, classic. You know, even the two hula hoops that are like around them, kind of like
the spinning three hula hoops and the beam of light
all that stuff. Super easy, practical effects. Yeah, but it works. It looks so like spacey, otherworldly.
Yeah, it's effective.
And I love that it wasn't until Supergirl that we never got to see what the Phantom Zone was like.
Yeah.
You finally get to see inside the Phantom Zone in Supergirl.
Yeah. I was watching a bit of Superman the Animated Series.
God, it's so good.
And the Phantom Zone in that is wild.
Yeah.
Because I forgot who it was, they get this beam and they like shoot somebody out of the Phantom Zone. But like the footage of inside, it's wild. It's like this red, crazy, amorphous, like
they're just kind of floating
let me
around.
out. Yeah,
And it's like these like kind of black bubbles that kind of evokes like Jack Kirby art style.
right. Yeah, totally.
Very like Fourth World. It's very good.
Yeah,
But super wild. It's like you could see how people go mad in the Phantom Zone. You're
Oh,
just
yeah.
floating in nothing. Whereas Supergirl showed it's kind of this like rocky, kind of craggy hellscape.
yeah. And
Which they kind of brought back in Smallville. The Phantom Zone in
okay.
Smallville is very like it looks very similar to what they did in Supergirl.
right,
That's right.
I guess in the Snyder verse, they're just kind of put in this weird like stasis pod.
Like a stasis pod that looks like a penis.
They look like dildos.
They look like big
yeah.
penises. Yeah.
How do you feel that
And
Man
then
of
that gets put
Steel?
into a ship, and then that ship goes into the Phantom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you feel Man of Steel just essentially feels like a rebooted version of 2?
Yeah, I mean, I can see that, especially when you're bringing in characters like Zod.
Yeah.
And I had such high hopes for Man of Steel. Like it was, I'll defend Man of Steel to my dying day.
Yeah.
Because I think it's a good film and it's a good jumping off point. And we just went south after that.
It would have been stronger with a sequel to it.
Oh, definitely. And I feel the same for Superman Returns.
Yeah.
I feel like Singer excels in sequels. I mean, if you look
Yeah.
at his X-Men films, X-Men 1 was fine.
Yeah.
X-Men 2 was stellar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like
So
that's
good.
what he was building to in Superman Returns. We just didn't get there because it was overinflated and the budget was insane.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I can see that. As someone like Zack Snyder who's very aesthetic in his directing, you want to bring in a character like Zod. You want to have a character that, from the get-go, that Superman can punch.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, the one thing these Chris Reeves films did kind of, like, poorly is every villain in every film is Lex Luthor.
Yeah.
I mean, he's pulling the strings in this movie, but you got Zod, Ursa, and Non. You even get to Superman 3 when Gene Hackman didn't want to come back. Who do we cast? We cast another white guy to play a nondescript billionaire. It's just Lex Luthor.
He's a stand-in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
So, I mean, they tried a little bit with Zod, Ursa, and Non, and then Nuclear Man a little bit in 3. Mark Pillow.
Oh,
my
Mark
God.
Pillow and his nuclear manicure.
Nuclear Man.
And that 80s, like, that mullet.
Yeah.
He was here to party.
He's got the Swayze hair. Like he's that movie is tough to watch.
It is.
It's tough. So I love that the villains in Superman 2. Yeah, like you said, Lex is pulling the strings, but he is kind of behind the scenes in most of the movie.
Yeah.
We were talking about today Miss Teschemacher, who
Who I love.
Valerie Perrine, so good.
I love her. She was such a great performance in the first Superman film.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize it until rewatching this. Lex takes her to the fortress.
Yep.
And then we forget about her.
And then just,
Yeah.
what does he leave her there?
forget
Does she
about
die?
Good luck getting home in your blimp.
Yeah.
In your hot air balloon.
The next scene we see Lex, he's at the White House.
Yeah.
Which,
Yeah.
by the way,
Just sneaks into the
just
White
broke out of prison. Most wanted man in America.
Walks into the White House.
Walks into the White House.
I mean, granted, it was just infiltrated by 3 aliens that forced the president to
but you had to,
abdicate.
in a real world, which this movie is
Yeah,
nowhere
no.
near, there had to be some sort of military presence
Oh, yeah,
outside
yeah.
watching these supervillains, and Lex just walks in.
He fully does like a Three Stooges, like peek around the corner, like, hello, anybody in there?
And speaking of Three Stooges, I really miss Otis in this film.
Yeah,
And
Otis.
that's,
They did him
and
so
that's-
dirty.
And that's
Yeah.
Ned Beatty,
Ned
who
Beatty.
couldn't
I
get
love-
on the hot air balloon.
And I
Or-
love that besides Superman, Otis is the only other one that has theme music.
Oh, yeah, he does have that,
Bump,
like,
bump,
dopey,
bump.
yeah.
It's so fun. I love it.
And I don't know if it's just like a Richard Lester thing, just because you can tell the jokiness.
Are you
of
talking
his
about
direction.
their Austin Powers breakout of the prison? That's straight up like
yeah.
out of Goldmember.
Can we talk for a second about how Lex Luthor created hologram technology
Yeah.
in a prison?
So he created holograms out of like sharpened toothbrushes and
Laundry
like,
soap? I don't know.
I don't know. But he did well. Again, Lex Luthor. I guess I would call myself a Superman casual. I'm familiar with the animated series, the Justice League animated series, the movies, really. But can you talk a little bit about Lex Luthor as a character? Like, what are his... He's a supervillain. In the movies, he's just kind of like an industrialist, maybe...
well, especially in the Chris Reeves films, it's like Lex Luthor is very like muddy. Like, where does he get his money? In the first film, he's living underground in a subway.
Yeah.
And
that layer is cool. That like flooded...
Cool. And it's like the flooded tunnel that is a pool now.
Yeah.
I love that. I'd live there any day of the week. I love it. But yeah, it's very strange who Lex Luthor is in these films, because then when you get to Superman 4, he's living in a high-rise.
Yeah.
Where does his money come from?
Yeah. And that's what was interesting about Smallville, is that they introduced him, the son of like a Bill Gates billionaire.
Yeah, where in the comics, his father was very... just like not in the picture. He was a self-made billionaire in the comics. But just like Superman, when you get to these new eras of these characters, they completely rebuild them from the ground up. Like at one point, Lex was very close to what you see in these films. We've gone through all these different iterations of Lex where he had a son who had like long flowing like red hair. Like, so we got to that kind of version of Lex Luthor where he wasn't bald. But yeah, the character himself, just like Superman, has been rebuilt so many times. But for the most part, he is like a billionaire industrialist.
Right.
What he does is not clear. He has military contracts. Lex seems like the type of guy who makes everything from like, soap to missiles.
Right. Yeah. Right. I like how in the animated series, and even in the like Lego DC Villains like video game, they have him in this like power suit.
Yeah.
So I like the idea of him being kind of like an evil, air quotes, evil Elon Musk. Just like using technology to make himself a supervillain or a superhero kind of a character.
And he did go toe-to-toe several times with Superman in the comics because he used that technology. He built himself almost like an Iron Man style super suit, and he would fight Superman.
Yeah.
Yeah, whereas this version of Lex Luthor is much more... subdued.
Right. So they give him kind of like super intelligence because he does make this. Yeah. He does fashion a hologram out of prison materials, and then he has Miss Teschemacher come to save them in a weather balloon. And the joke is that Ned Beatty,
he's too fat to get on.
So
too
fat.
He's pulling down a full balloon.
Yeah, one step at a time. Each step of the ladder, it just gets lower and lower. And I mean, funny, we're laughing, but it's just like, oh my god, this is so jokey.
Yeah, that survived into the Donner cut.
Okay,
but a lot of the jokey elements, what made Superman 2 so fun and kind of whimsical, were Lester.
Yeah. Lex also creates some sort of tracking machine. Okay. The idea is that they know that Superman continually flies north
from his flight patterns.
Patterns. What's north? Why does he go there? We got to figure it out. That's got to be where his secret lair is. So I'm going to go north. So I've developed this black box. Right, he keeps referring to this black box, which is like, just get a compass, dude. All it's pointing you is north.
Just head north. They fly a balloon north, and then you see a giant, like, crystalline ice structure. You're like, oh,
there it is.
Yeah, it's wild.
Love that. Miss Teschemacher is there. She's the one that comes to the weather balloon. She has her like cool like 1920s like pilot like leather cap and the goggles and all of that. Then her costume change in the Fortress of Solitude.
It's pretty fierce.
Oh
this
my
red,
god!
Like
furs.
Yeah, she's got to stay warm.
Yeah, she's got like a muff.
Where did they find? Where did they find the snow machine?
Yeah, they leave, or no, they enter and exit on a snowmobile.
Right.
Where was that?
And he's telling her like mush, and it's a snowmobile.
Well, where did they get the change of clothes? Also, when they get into that basket in the prison, there's
pretty small.
There.
No, there's nothing in it. So they must have they planted this like snowmobile somewhere in the Arctic. My goodness, the Fortress of Solitude is very interesting.
Yeah.
Because, when later on in the movie, when he takes Lois there, she's like, "You live here?" And he's like, "No, I live like a block away from you."
Yet there's a dinette set and a bed.
Exactly.
That
bunk bed.
That bed.
The Superman fuck bed.
It's like
that giant bed with the silver satin sheets.
It's all made of silver satin,
God.
and it's kind of set up like a weird, like hammock style.
Mm-hmm. Well, I love
because it's like hanging.
They have to stay on theme with the silver.
Yeah.
Even if you look at the dinette set, there's these big crystals on the table.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
have to look like they're part of the fortress.
Yes.
It's insane.
I want to see Lois like walking around like, oh, is this form decor? I think I have this in my living room.
I have this pillow. So
the Fortress of Solitude, sponsored by the Interior Illusions Lounge.
Yeah, I mean, the idea is that the technology on Krypton is based on these like crystals.
It's organic crystal based,
Right.
which was something that was new to these films.
Oh, okay.
In the comics up to this point, they just had advanced technology.
Sure.
So they had robots. Like it's more, it's very similar to what they did in Man of Steel with the robots that were floating around the ship.
Yeah.
He had two robots in the fortress named Kelex and Kelor.
Right.
So everything was very looked earthbound, but it was just more advanced.
Okay.
The crystals came from these films.
Okay, interesting.
And they stuck around in the comics for a while because of it.
And even in Man of Steel, I feel like with they kind of they're not crystals, but they're like these weird pieces, like the key, the Superman symbol key, and all that. But it's based on this kind of weird organic metallic
that moves
shape
and shifts.
shifting.
Yeah, that's very cool technology.
Yeah,
I did really enjoy that.
Yeah, but yeah, the flying robots, they're there in Superman Doomsday with Anne Heche.
Yeah, Anne Heche voices Lois.
Yes. Yeah. So many great voice actors.
Carrie Russell did like a stint, right?
She did.
Lois?
She did Wonder Woman.
Oh, Wonder Woman. Okay.
She did the one Wonder Woman movie before they brought in Rosario
Dawson for the current DC
films.
animated films.
Yeah, she kind of took over for a lot. But yeah,
which is Superman and those are voiced by Jerry O'Connell. Which why did he never get a chance to play Superman?
Because he lost out that audition to Dean Cain.
He has the look.
Yeah, he totally has the look.
He lost an audition to a football player.
Yeah. I did grow up a little bit on Lois and Clark with Dean Cain.
Oh, I'm not bashing Lois and Clark. I love Lois and Clark. Also has a very silly campiness to it, just like these films.
Who's the voice of Superman in the Lego movie?
It's Channing Tatum.
Yeah,
it's Channing Tatum.
I think they went funny with that one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because Jonah Hill was Green Lantern.
Yes.
So it was Channing Tatum because they were together all the time around that time.
Oh,
after
okay.
the 21 Jump Street. Yeah.
Yeah. They did a bunch of stuff.
They became
together.
like big buddies.
Mm-hmm. So, the Fortress of Solitude stuff is interesting. Really, yeah. The crystal stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, okay. I guess those are computers.
I like Mrs. Teschemacher saying it's a crystal, and Gene Hackman's like, no, it's not.
One thing that always confused me when I was a kid, and you get it a lot in Superman 1 and 2, is there's this main crystal that activates everything.
The green one?
The green one.
Yeah.
They call it a sunstone in the comics. They never refer to it as sunstone here. It's like the main crystal. It always confused me when I was a kid that it was green.
Why is it green? Because
like,
kryptonite. Yeah.
Right? It's green.
Yeah. Which, no kryptonite in Superman 2.
Yeah.
No.
They just fully take his powers away.
Yeah. And then it makes a return in Superman 3.
Yes.
And then after that, we just have super fingernails in 4.
So in Superman 2, all of the Kryptonian like archival footage, these holograms that Jor-El has kind of created and programmed to teach his son about his past, and
they're holograms that can talk back to him too.
It's AI,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, it's interactive.
A really sophisticated Siri. Mm-hmm. kind of a thing. But because Brando said, hell no, you can't use me in this movie, it's all Lara.
It's all his mother. Yeah.
Who is this actress? It is
I'm not sure.
Susanna York. Academy Award nominee Susanna York from They Shoot Horses, Don't They?
Oh, okay. Not familiar.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of interesting. You're just like, well, why? I mean, I guess if Jor-El is making this for his son, why wouldn't he program, Kal-El's mother to be in it as well? So,
but when I was a kid watching this, that never occurred to me. I mean, you don't know about these things when you watch movies. You just, you get to see Jor-El a lot in the first movie, and you get to see his mother in this movie.
Yeah. So, and then there's like one other guy who is like an encyclopedia guy.
Yeah, which In the Donner cut, non-existent.
Gone? Okay.
It's all Jor-El in the Donner
Okay.
cut, completely. No mom, no nothing. That's all Jor-El.
Interesting. All right.
Can we talk a little bit, since we're kind of just going through just sections of this movie, because there's no point of recapping this movie because there's just too much of it. Can we talk a little bit about Lois Lane and her wish with death? Just zero chill in this movie.
God.
So in the Donner cut, she jumps out of the office window
Immediately.
and
Like 10
in
minutes in.
the theatrical cut, the one that we watched, just jumps off of Niagara Falls.
Yeah.
Well, after climbing into an elevator on the Eiffel Tower that's equipped with a bomb.
Yeah. Underneath the elevator. Not even in an elevator. She's on like the railing underneath the elevator.
Yeah, because it's the Eiffel Tower, so it's all open. So she climbs in.
The lengths that this bitch will go to win that fucking Pulitzer.
Yeah. Does she have a Pulitzer yet in these movies?
Well, didn't she win one for Superman? Why the World Doesn't Need Superman Returns?
Well, that's in Returns.
In between,
Why Does It Need Superman?
In between two and Returns, yeah. When he left.
Why are they giving out that Pulitzer for that article? That should be like an article in like Redbook or something.
She had very intimate knowledge of Superman. So,
Very.
She had, But, Lois Lane, and the portrayal in these movies is really, I love Margot Kidder.
Love Margot Kidder. Movies that made us gay all-star from Black Christmas.
Oh, yeah.
See, Margot Kidder as Lois Lane is kind of a hot button issue for me.
Yeah.
I love these films. I love Chris Reeve in these films. I like Lois in these films.
Mm-hmm.
I was never a fan of Margot Kidder as Lois.
I like she's just kind of a little kooky.
She's very kooky.
Yep.
Oh, I mean, if you're talking about kooky in this movie, you're talking about a woman who is constantly drinking orange juice because it's healthy while she's chain smoking.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's natural. It's like a cigarette hanging out of her mouth. Yeah, this character is too much. So, okay. I don't know which is worse, jumping out of a damn 50-story
They're both
window.
crazy.
It's nuts.
Yeah, there's different versions of how she tries to get him to reveal himself, depending on which cut you're watching.
Yeah.
Donner cut, she jumps out of a window immediately, like 10 minutes in. She's on to Clark as Superman from the start of the film.
I love her doing her little impromptu sketch of Clark when she...
On the newspaper?
When she draws Clark over Superman.
The Sharpie, and she draws little glasses on.
Mm-hmm.
But see, very different in the theatrical, like Lester cut. She waits until... they go to Niagara Falls for this story, and then she jumps into the water to get Clark to save her. And both versions, he does not fall.
He's like, nope, we're going to figure this shit out. That scene in Niagara Falls where the little boy is on the other side of the railing and he's just like playing and playing and playing. That used to like give me so much anxiety as a kid. I'm like, oh my God.
See, I got the anxiety from Lois underneath the elevator going up. I was like, oh, I couldn't watch it.
Yeah, crazy. And then, he eventually does fall in. Clark is off to get Lois. Okay, again, Lois Lane, obsessed with her. She read a book where this guy says, if you get X amount of vitamin C a day, you'll never get sick. So she's like, has to have her freshly squeezed orange juice every day. So she says, Clark, I'm hungry. Go get me 2 hot dogs with everything on it. And a glass of freshly squeezed orange.
Are both hot dogs for Lois, or is she going to share one?
I'm assuming they're both for her.
She said two.
Right. Okay.
I think she said
I think
two.
Lois can, despite Margot Kidder being a
Very
small
thin.
woman.
Yeah.
I feel like Lois can pack it away.
I think so too. She'll put away both those hot dogs. I think she orders 2. So he's off doing that, and this kid falls in, turns into Superman, goes and saves the kid. As he's saving the kid, flying up from the bottom of Niagara Falls, and everybody's like clapping and cheering, you hear kind of, not even faintly, you hear a woman say, "Of course he's Jewish."
I believe it's the same woman. You also hear like this is like Jewish grandmother going, "What a nice man!
What a nice man!" Yeah. Yeah,
that's so great.
I love it. And so this is when I feel like in the theatrical in the Lester cut, this is really when Lois is just like, oh shit, where is Clark? Clark? Maybe because in the Donner cut, it's the beginning of the movie. She's like, okay.
Well, the Paris incident isn't even in the Donner
completely
cut. Completely cut out.
Yeah.
They go straight to Niagara Falls. That's their story, and she's on to him from the get go. But yeah, she really starts to suspect here.
Yeah.
But in the theatrical, I like their little line of dialogue of, we really have to get to work on this.
Here we are in Niagara Falls.
On this honeymoon.
Exposition
subplot of this movie.
Yeah. Which, can we talk about this honeymoon suite?
Love that honeymoon suite. It's giving me very like Madonna Inn.
There are pillars in this room, floor to ceiling pillars that are lava lamps.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, the pillars around the bed. 4 pillars around the bed, full lava lamps. 7-foot lava lamps.
Yeah, which connect at the top to a chandelier over the bed.
So what do you think that this like honeymoon scam was supposed to be?
It's unclear.
It's unclear. Like, I mean, I take it that they were overcharging.
What are they exposing?
But it's like, of course they're overcharging couples because they're shelling out for this room that probably should be like a grand a night.
Suite at the Niagara Falls. Yeah, of course they're overcharging people.
And I like that it's a honeymoon suite in Niagara Falls. It's huge. It's got this giant centerpiece fireplace.
The conversational firepiece.
Yeah.
Or fire pit there.
Fire pit. The crazy 4-poster, lava lamp bed with the chandelier. All this crazy shit. It's on levels. There's like steps. But it is clearly shot in a soundstage because the windows never open.
You never see a ceiling.
Yeah.
And it's like, wouldn't this fabulous Niagara Falls honeymoon suite have a view?
Yeah. They're at Niagara Falls for a reason.
I think they kind of open the curtains to like other sheer curtains.
I think Clark looks out, but you never get to see what he's looking at.
Because it's clearly this is a soundstage. And it only has 3 walls. But yeah, this room is amazing. This bellhop... Fuck this guy.
Oh, yeah.
No tip for you.
So smarmy.
Oh, my God.
There's even kind of a little...
First time here, first time together.
I was going to say, there's even kind of a little sexual tension between this bar hop and Clark.
Yeah. Congratulations on whatever this is. Mm-hmm. What the fuck? How is he still have a job? Is it his first day?
Is he running the scam?
Yeah, that's what I'm like. Is a scam this dude? Like, what the hell? And Clark tips him. Because of course he does, because he's Clark Kent.
Yeah, he's Clark Kent.
Going to tip everybody.
He sends half his paycheck home to his gray-haired mother. Of course he does.
With the paycheck, sending it home. It's so crazy.
What a nice man.
What a nice man. And I love that he fully asks, and this is in the first movie, when he gets the job at the Daily Planet, he asks Perry White, the editor of the Daily Planet, about his paycheck.
That's an HR question.
That is
exactly.
Like, cost payroll. I don't know. Do whatever the hell you want. I don't take care of it.
I mean, Perry White is laying out these headlines on his desk. So he's been like
manually.
He's stretched pretty thin. Like he's doing the headlines himself.
Yeah, at his own desk. The editor is fully just like letter by letter.
But I'd love to see just a handwritten note. Send half check home to Kansas.
To Smallville. Oh, my goodness.
No one else works in this building.
He does it all. He literally signs the checks one at a time.
I don't know if you noticed, but Richard Lester gave Lois an upgrade. She has an office in this cut.
Okay.
She had a desk in the first one?
In the Donner cut. Even in the Donner cut, she's still in the bullpen next to Clark.
Interesting.
In this cut, she has an office.
Oh, yeah, that's right. In the suit that she jumps out the window. Yeah. I love that costume where she jumps out the window. It's like a peach pink coral like skirt in a blouse and a big wide white necktie.
Yeah.
Love it. And I
working woman of the 1980s.
Yeah, 70s at this point.
1970s, yeah.
I mean, if we were talking about being filmed along with Superman 1, 70s. Yeah, 77 probably filmed.
And also, when they go to the honeymoon suite, she's wearing like the big hat, which is very like super 70s. Like she's wearing like a big white hat. And the bellhop also says like, "Oh, if you need help lifting her up, it's tradition." And she's like, "No." So Lois starts to kind of, she's catching on to Superman, throws herself into Niagara Falls. He does the full, I like that he uses the heat vision to give her a branch, the smallest branch.
But
grab on, Lois.
What kills me is he uses his heat vision through his glasses.
Yeah.
He doesn't even do the pull down. He heat visions through his glasses to break off a tiny branch.
It's so small
that somehow saved her life.
Yeah, what did he even do? She eventually went
and it's like, meanwhile, don't take out Lois with the tree branch.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it was like so far ahead of her too. I'm like, how's she going to catch up to that little floating stick? But she does.
And then she makes her way to the shore.
Yeah. and Clark clumsily falls in to save her, and she ends up saving him.
I love it.
But so it's not until we're back in the hotel room where Clark clumsily falls into the fire pit.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, oh, let me see your hand. Let me see your hand. And she grabs this giant mitt of a hand.
Mm-hmm.
Those shots, and I don't know if they're insert shots or what, if it's actually Margot Kidder holding on to Chris Reeve's hand. But those shots in the movie, his hand looks gigantic in her tiny little hand.
Well, I mean, he's probably a full foot and a half taller than she is.
Yeah.
So he's just a big guy.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem
so
it, but
crazy.
he is.
Yeah. And that's when she's like, okay, what the hell? How was your hand fully in the fire pit?
This is when she finally gets it out of him.
Yeah. And he just kind of like admits it, right?
He admits it, but he has a little bit of a tantrum first. I think he
I didn't want to have to tell you. Yeah. And in this scene, he's wearing like a cool, like a cardigan, like a button-down cardigan with like a collar and pockets. He's got some cool looks as Clark.
Very like GQ man of the late 70s.
Yeah, totally.
I don't know why I did that.
Maybe you wanted to.
I don't think I did.
Well, maybe you didn't want to with your mind, but maybe you wanted to with your heart.
We better talk.
I'm in love with you.
So we really better talk.
I'm listening.
We can't talk here. Perry's going to be calling about 6 to find out what's happening.
What's happening? That's the understatement of the year.
So this is when he's just like, okay, well, I told you, so I might as well like tell you the whole story.
Yeah, it's also worth mentioning, too, that for me, Chris Reeve is the ultimate Clark Kent Superman because of the way he portrays the two characters.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people, to this day, still argue, how could Lois not know he's Superman? It's a pair of glasses. It's not a pair of glasses.
Yeah.
If you look at the way Chris Reeve plays this, there's a great scene in the first film where he tries to tell Lois who he is. He's constantly just slouched over as Clark. He raises his voice just a couple octaves higher the whole time he's talking.
Yeah.
And then the glasses, of course, help. And his hair is parted a different direction.
Yeah.
Superman versus Clark.
Totally.
But that scene where he tries to tell her, you see him straighten out his back and his hair, not his hair, just thinking about the stupid part.
Yeah.
The voice gets deeper. It's a whole transformation. It's a completely different character.
Yeah.
And no one.
They don't do that at all in the Zack Snyder movies.
No one has been able to do it since Chris Reeve or like Chris Reeve. No, they give up on it completely in the Zack Snyder films. It's like Lois finds out he's Superman in the first movie. It's like his attempt to be Clark Kent is like, just don't be seen.
Yeah.
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 In the Zack Snyder film. Which, I mean, to a degree I enjoy because Lois is supposed to be this just great reporter. She's supposed to be able to figure these things out. She does, and that's great. And they made Lois a strong, smart woman. But yeah, the Clark Kent persona might as well be non-existent in those films.
Do you know Amy Adams read for the MTMUG movie that never got made?
Oh,
so she was like reading for Lois Lane in like the early 2000s when they were supposed to do that MTMUG movie
with Matt Bomer.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Or was Matt Bomer attached to? So many different directors.
Yeah.
Before this thing got off the ground as Superman Returns, it went through so many different versions. J.J. Abrams, which that script that J.J. Abrams wrote, he wasn't the director. He only wrote it. That script is online. If you can read it.
Is that the one that was supposed to be by MTMUG?
Yeah, it was going to be MTMUG, and then it went. I think it was Brett Ratner, then MTMUG. I can't remember. It switched hands a couple times. One of them wouldn't fly overseas to film.
I think that's MTMUG.
Yeah, so then it went to Brett Ratner.
Yeah,
and then from Brett Ratner to Singer.
And then there was the whole Tim Burton movie.
Oh, the Tim Burton movie that predates.
With Nick Cage.
Yeah. Which, you know what? I kind of want to see it.
Oh, yeah.
I want to see it.
Well, after that documentary, you're just like, oh, okay, that's what they were doing.
It's hard from the images that they released and what you're in Nick Cage alone.
Yeah.
You're just like, what? And then when you watch the documentary, you're like, oh, I kind of get what they're trying to do now.
And it makes sense that when you have a costume designer like Colleen Atwood in that documentary talk about these were the phases of the costumes, and like this was the one that we finally landed on.
Which I believe Atwood carried over to Superman Returns.
Yeah.
She did all the costuming in that movie.
Yeah.
But
all the neon stuff was like for a specific scene, like regeneration like pods,
which
and all
isn't
that,
far off of what they did in this film when he goes into the chamber and his powers go away.
Do you remember that part
the
of the
chamber?
Do you remember that part of the documentary where they were talking about Bryan Singer just being bitchy Bryan Singer of when studios would question, like, do you think we should be doing something new? Like, do you think it's a good idea to be rehashing this old vision? And then he would just like remind them of the leaked Nick Cage photo.
Oh,
just be like, this is what happens when you try something new.
He carried a picture of Nick Cage. He carried a picture of Nick Cage on the set.
Yeah.
And he was like, we're not making this movie. And he would hold up that picture. That's right. I completely forgot about that.
That's so rude.
That was a wild cast as well. Nick Cage is Superman. I believe Sandy Bullock is Lois Lane.
Okay.
Chris Rock was apparently supposed to play Jimmy Olsen.
Right.
I'm kind of here
all
for
right.
it, though.
Yeah.
I could see that. I could see Sandy making a really good Lois
She
Lane.
would make a really good
especially in like the 90s.
And the rumors were during the Death of Superman scene, he lured Keaton back for a Batman scene.
Oh, man.
Okay.
That would have been
Right?
cool.
It would have either been like the worst movie of all time or the greatest movie of all time.
But even if it was the worst movie of all time, it would have gone down in history as just like a phenomenal cult film.
They swung really hard on that one.
And I feel like people would come back around to it, just like people have come back around to Batman and Robin.
Yeah.
You know, hated in its day.
Yeah.
But now it's a completely different film.
Yeah.
I feel like people found appreciation for it after the passing of Schumacher.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, it's the same thing with even with Star Wars with the prequels.
Exactly.
People love the prequels.
People are coming back around on the prequels after they've seen the
sequels. Exactly.
Like, oh, well, I guess we didn't have it so bad.
Yeah. So we got to talk about this crystal chamber. After the Fortress of Solitude, like, romantic dinner.
Their little dinner date.
Yeah.
Where he flies and gets Lois flowers. He from, like, the Caribbean?
He brings her some takeout. He comes back with a bag of groceries that he's going to make.
Yeah,
so the Fortress of Solitude has like a kitchen.
Does it have like a microwave?
I'm learning all kinds of new things about the Fortress of Solitude.
It's got its crazy silver spiderweb like fuck chamber. And that's when he makes the wild decision. Well, it's not even really his decision. It's kind of Lara kind of tells him, like, if you're going to be with her, you have to be with her, like, as a human.
Yeah.
So this is her, like Liv Tyler, Lord of the Rings, like, well, I've got to give up my immortality to be with you, lowly human. And for some reason, the Fortress of Solitude has harnessed the power of the red sun of Krypton. Or dual suns? Do they have
it's just a red sun, yeah. It's just a single red sun.
Yeah. And if he goes in this, like, this crystal, which clearly looks plastic, chamber, it will take away his power.
And he's not changed back with the Earth sun. I don't know, whatever.
Yeah.
He gets there's power from the Earth's yellow sun, but does nothing to him here.
No. So he's just infused with so much red, you know. What does he call it? What does he tell? A molecule chamber?
A molecule chamber, yeah.
So many molecules are just like running all through him that it's just like sunblock.
And see, this is another big departure from the Donner Cut, too. The Donner Cut, this whole sequence is much more sacrificial, it seems like. And he's talking to Jor-El, and Jor-El is actually trying to talk him out of it.
Oh, okay.
In the Donner Cut, it's his decision. Jor-El says you can't put one human above all of humanity.
Okay, yeah. That makes more sense.
Completely different cut of this scene.
Yeah. Interesting.
They kind of let him know of the stakes that are involved.
Yeah.
All to fuck Lois Lane.
Because it's that classic conversation. If he doesn't do it, he'll just blast right through her.
What Kevin Smith movie was that from? Was it Clerks or Mallrats?
Mallrats.
Okay.
There's a lot.
I thought it was Mallrats.
There's a lot of superhero fucking conversation in Mallrats.
The only one that he can have sex with and bang is Wonder Woman.
Safely. I mean, he'll just blow right through Lois if he doesn't. So they don't actually do it until after
Yeah,
he
when he's
goes to
human.
the red chamber. Okay, interesting. So he becomes human, and then we get the crazy scene in the truck stop.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's just to show his vulnerability now.
Yeah.
Which this scene, when I was a kid, always made me sad.
Bums
Yeah,
me
I don't like this scene either. I get that it's
so
there as a purpose.
Bums me out.
Just to show that
Mm-hmm.
he's weak now.
Yeah.
But also, without superpowers, does Clark Kent not know how to throw a punch?
Right?
Like-
he can't even defend himself. It's like
He's a pretty big guy.
yeah.
He towers over this guy he's fighting,
Yeah,
actually.
and the dude's older than him.
Yeah.
It's like you.
Although the
come
guy
on,
does
dude.
throw a lot of sucker punches.
I mean,
Almost
I've
every hit is a sucker
The
punch.
back of the head.
Back
what
of the
the
head.
hell?
Elbow when
Dirty-
he's sitting down.
Dirty
Yeah.
fighter.
But Clark is in like a new body. He's not
Yeah.
used to his
He's
like
a baby bird.
Yeah.
He's not used to his regular human puny body.
And now that he's Clark, but he's human Clark, he doesn't wear all the product in his hair.
No product. Yeah.
So now he's got his like floppy,
that 70s.
yeah, 70s hair, which is like, I love it.
yeah.
It's such a cool look on him.
Who did you compare him to?
It's like 80s Bruce Jenner hair.
80s Bruce
Yeah.
Jenner hair. Yep.
From back in the day. So we this scene bums the hell out of me every time.
Yeah, when he's laying on the ground bleeding and he's like looking at his blood in disbelief and he's like, my blood.
My blood.
My blood.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
a
so
bummer.
crazy. But then this is when on the TV, it's like special report. You know,
We've got to move the story forward.
Special
Yeah.
report. Our Earth has been like
taken over.
taken over.
And I love that the president of the United States is like, and I speak on behalf of the entire Earth.
Which I have to say for this president character, it's just like he didn't really put up he didn't really put up a fight.
Well, he used a Padme style decoy. What are you talking
Yeah,
about?
exactly. And he also said, but he does say, like, I'm going to try and save lives.
Yeah.
Like, the only reason I'm doing this is because I don't want, you know.
He there's a prerequisite. He's like, I'll do it,
Yeah.
but I'm doing it to save lives.
Yeah.
And Zod's like, well, yours.
He's
Yeah,
probably not.
yours.
I mean, he's not going to be winning his re-election campaign after the events of this movie.
Oh, no.
But, I mean, there are only 3 of them. I know they have superpowers, but it's like, if the entire world is like, I mean, come on. We outnumber them.
Have we tried just evacuating DC and nuking it?
Yeah, what the hell?
They sat there for days.
Doing what?
Being bored.
Hanging
And it's like,
out. Yeah.
meanwhile-
in the
Get
Oval
the little-
Office.
Meanwhile, like all 3 of them, what are they going to do on Earth?
What's their end game?
Like, what's their end game? Like, they're
Yeah.
just going to take over the White House.
Well, they showed him. They were just sitting around the Oval Room, as as Lex Luthor calls it, hanging around the Oval Room.
These 2 are going to be bored in like the first hour of taking over Earth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I like when it's on in the. First of all, the staff at the truck stop. I mean, they got to just 86 this guy. They knew he was trouble coming in.
Yeah, they hear his truck coming up and they're like, oh,
Yeah.
here we go.
Yeah, Mr. Personality.
Damaging property, beating up patrons.
Yeah.
You can just say, you know what? You're not welcome
Yeah,
here anymore.
no, get out. We're not going to serve you.
Yeah.
So after all this shit goes down, there's like broken glass everywhere. Clark is like bleeding on the floor, and she's like, "All right, everybody, show's over. I'm turning
Turn
on the TV." Love
Turn
it.
on the box.
The box.
She did the box.
But then after like we get this crazy announcement, the like cook or whatever is like, "Yeah, that's enough of that." Just turns it off.
Right?
Nobody wants any follow up information.
USA's been taken over by aliens. We're done. I'm good.
Yeah, they don't have their phones to pull out. They have to watch TV.
I think Columbo's on.
Yeah. Change it over to Matlock. Or Hotel or something that would have been on in the 80s.
Love Boat?
Yeah.
Maybe Love Boat. Yeah.
Love Boat. Does Superman immediately just figure he's got to go back?
Yeah, after
Yeah.
he gets his ass kicked
How
and
does
he
he
sees
get back
Zod.
to the Fortress of Solitude?
Walks.
There's a long walking
Yeah.
montage. He just walks back to the
He
North
walks
Pole.
all the way back to the North Pole.
That's how he got there in the first movie. Quote,
Yeah.
air quotes, teenage Clark Kent. I'm still mad at the casting of this teenage Clark Kent.
Oh, yeah, the one who was like in his mid to late 20s.
What? He's like a year younger than Chris Reeve. Why did they cast this guy? It should have been a way younger kid, but I
Yeah.
mean, a way younger kid couldn't have walked, I guess, to Antarctica. But, or the North Pole, I guess. Antarctica South. So, yeah, so he gets back to the Fortress of Solitude and finds the green crystal. And,
he finds the plot device.
yeah, we get a cutaway. So he figures it out.
Yeah. Whereas there's much more to that scene in the Donner cut. There's
Yeah.
a whole dialogue with Jor-El.
Mm-hmm.
And Jor-El says, I can do this. I can give you back your powers.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, but it's going to be at a cost. The fortress, myself, will be at no use to you. Yeah. If he chooses to go back, he gets his powers, but that's it. He gets no more contact with Jor-El, Krypton, Heritage, anything. It's done. So the sacrifice to become human in the Donner Cut has much more weight.
Sure.
Yeah.
But that kind of sets up Superman Returns, because the whole thing is that after the events of this movie, Superman 2, he just leaves for like a bunch of years.
He goes to find Krypton.
Yeah. Interesting. All right, because it's not really set up that way. It's not set up at all. He just looks around, spots the green crystal, and we cut away back to the White House.
Yeah, there's a little bit more setup for it in the Donner Cut. You could see him kind of looking through rubble, because the control where he put in the green crystal in the Donner Cut explodes.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's all black and
like
destroyed
charred.
in the theatrical.
Yeah, but you get more of that in the Donner Cut. And he actually like searches for the crystal and then finds it, puts it in, has the conversation with Jor-El.
Sure. Because Lois kind of is, she has it in her hands and she's just kind of messing with it, and I think she just drops it on the ground.
Yeah.
At some point.
At some point she just drops it. And I think that's where he finds it. He just sees it off in the distance like glowing.
Okay.
And making that high-pitched squeal.
Sure. And I guess they found a car somewhere because they drove up to this truck stop.
Yeah. They did. They were in a car.
Yeah.
Whose car was that?
Yeah, because Lois has to get herself back to Metropolis somehow. So
it's
she
like
just
the
drives
snowmobile
it.
question.
Yeah.
Well, they end up in like
vehicles.
They end up in like Glacier.
Yeah, they're driving through and they're in like
the mountains.
Yeah, they're in the mountains. And the truck stop is in the middle of nowhere, it looks like.
None of these things would fly in a modern superhero movie. Like none of them.
All that stuff gets picked apart so easy now, you know?
Yeah.
Especially with like YouTube and Twitter
we've
and
talked
all that
about,
stuff. It's like
we've talked about this before that, I mean, audiences were not really doing that at this time in the early 80s.
No. Yeah. And there was no platform to do it. Maybe you thought maybe if you're the kind of person that saw it multiple times in the theater and then thought about it or you know, saw some review or somebody talked about it, but other than that, like where would you write about it for other people to read it and figure it out and everybody comment on it? You know, it's YouTube and it's Twitter now where people get into this like crazy.
I also think audiences back then were just more willing to suspend disbelief and just
enjoy
a film.
They were happy to have a Superman movie.
Yeah. I mean, because prior to this, 10 years before Superman, they would have never even thought they'd see this type of film.
Yeah. Totally.
And then, you know, the floodgates were opened with Star Wars and this movie. It's just like, it's insane what came after this.
Yeah.
That both of those movies, both of these franchises just really opened the doors to so many things.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy how this kind of like started, you know, modern superhero movies, but really there was kind of a break between the Superman series and Batman, which kind of jump-started everything.
We had probably about like a 5-year wait between Superman 4 and then Batman 89, which really started to kick everything off.
Yeah.
Then we got into the 90s. Batman became a long-running franchise, and then everything was looked at as a potential film. I mean, hell, we got a Phantom movie.
I was just going to say, the Phantom, the Shadow.
The Shadow.
Yeah.
It's kind of, we talked about it on our Batman episode, but it's kind of Warner Brothers and other studios taking everything that they probably shouldn't have taken from the 89 Batman movie and replicated it, being the 1930s serial aspect of it.
Yeah. Are you saying you don't like Dick Tracy?
Dick Tracy's a pretty weird movie.
I mean, a lot of these movies are weird.
Yeah.
They're so weird. Like The Shadow.
Oh, my God.
I mean, that's a whole...
I mean, did Alec Baldwin just do The Shadow because he was like,
he regretted saying no?
Yeah. He passed on Batman, and he's like, son of a bitch.
Damn it. Yeah. Darkman's cool.
Darkman
I forget about Darkman.
I like Darkman.
Fun. Yeah. It's crazy.
It's a weird, strange,
it's so weird.
dark movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the Phantom is Billy Zane.
Phantom's Billy Zane, yeah.
We got Liam Neeson in the
Darkman,
Darkman, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But that was also Raimi.
Yeah, that was
Sam
Raimi.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, Billy Zane, another person who probably would have been a great Batman.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
He would have been a good Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that. But I was just thinking if there was one Flash Gordon.
Yeah.
Like early 80s. But that, that's also just kind of like off the rails. So yeah, as far as like mainstream successful, like, you know, almost like prestige movies. Like Batman and Superman are just like...
Yeah, it was like
top.
Superman kind of set the standard.
Yeah.
And then we didn't really have
Set the
anything
standard.
until Batman in 89.
Yeah.
Which, much like Superman, changed a lot of the source material, which then became canon for the character.
Yeah, I was going to say, what they did in those movies, it wasn't like... What the animated movies do so well, the DC animated movies, is they pick particular storylines, and they're like, boom, we're going to do that. And then they follow them, you know, fairly well. But I think, especially with Batman, they were just like picking and choosing from all over the place.
Yeah, same with Superman. It's Superman and Batman. They just kind of chose familiar characters and themes, and they just wrote original stories.
Yeah.
Kind of leading with casting, especially for the 89 Batman movie.
Yeah. So we should talk about their final, like, showdown in Metropolis.
Boy. So good.
You know, we always give modern superhero movies a lot of shit for destroying cities.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah,
like,
especially after Man of Steel.
Yeah.
Man of Steel, which is like September 11th times 10.
Yeah. And we're like, why do they have to destroy the city in every movie?
They were doing it in this movie.
But they really knocked the hell out of Metropolis in this movie.
Metropolis gets fucked up.
It's a smaller, you know, scale.
Yeah, it's
I
like
love
a certain area.
Yeah, a couple of
I
square
love all of
blocks.
the extras that they got in this scene.
Oh, yeah. The extras were just like playing it up, which is also another Lester thing.
Yeah.
A lot of this silliness is out in the Donner cut. I think Lester really played around with the idea of just this kind of silly humor aspects of it. Like the two cops when we first get the trio in Idaho.
Yeah.
There's a long scene before we see Zod, Ursa, and Nan where they're just talking about eating fish.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
like, what is this?
I don't want to eat fish. And,
Yep.
And then you get a lot of that with these extras in this scene.
So there's, in particular, there's a whole set piece where Zod is using his, like, super breath to...
Both of them.
Yeah. Zod and Ursa or Nan, maybe all three of them.
I think it was all three of them. I think they stood in like a formation and they were using their breath.
To use their super breath, they, you know, get Superman thrown up against a bus and like another bus on top of him. It's a whole big accident. But while this is all happening, there's some crazy nonsense with the people in the crowd. We've got a woman's wig flies off her head.
Yep.
Isn't there a guy carrying food that flies out of his hands?
There, an ice cream cone.
Yeah.
Flies off the cone. The ice cream flies into somebody's face. Someone in a phone booth. The phone booth gets knocked over, dragged several feet.
Still having a conversation.
That's
Still
a very
talking on the phone.
It's like something that would happen to Mole Man on The Simpsons.
Yeah. To say nothing of the roller skating mime.
Yeah.
It was like blown away on skates.
But can we also talk about Metropolis for just a second?
Yeah.
Is it New York?
Right.
Or is it not?
Right, yeah.
Why does every single Superman movie
The trade
of
centers.
this area has a trade, and it also has the Statue of Liberty in every film.
Yeah.
Every film.
Once again, one of those kind of details they just didn't really care about.
Or is this like alt geography and New York doesn't exist in this version?
Right.
And in New York, there is Metropolis. Like,
right.
I don't, yeah.
Well, isn't it that Metropolis is New York and like Philadelphia is Gotham? Kind of, if you were to look at the geography of DC,
New York,
it's hotly to see. I always got Gotham as being like Detroit.
Sure,
but that said, isn't it in Dawn of Justice? Aren't they like
they're
neighboring cities?
Yeah,
they're sister cities across the bay.
I don't know how I feel about that.
I mean, it works for the story of that film,
sure,
but I don't particularly love
it. Works for the lazy script writing of that. Of that one.
And then if you look at The Dark Knight, it's, obviously like Chicago.
I was going to say, in Dark Knight, it's clearly Chicago.
Yeah.
The first movie...
Begins is a little unclear.
I think they did a lot. They did a lot more CG work in Batman Begins to make it kind of its own city. But by the time you get to Dark Knight, it is clearly...
By the time they get to Dark Knight Rises, they're just like, sure, we're just going to fucking film downtown LA. Yeah. We don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of shots of downtown LA.
For me, for my money's worth, it doesn't get any better than the Burton era Gotham.
Yeah,
the big, just like Art Deco statues holding buildings up.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, that's just really great, and that's one instance where it's like clearly they went out of their way to make a unique, cityscape. But yeah, are they in Times Square? With the big neon Coca-Cola sign?
It seems like it would be Times Square.
I always remember they pick up a bus, and it's got a bus ad for Evita. The play Evita. And as a kid, I was like, what is that? Is that a word? What is Evita? I didn't know what that was.
Yeah.
But as a kid, you always saw it right there, in front of your face. Just like you see the Marlboro cigarettes truck.
That shot of Superman going through the cigarette truck is crazy. And that's kind of one of those things that when you watch a Transformers movie and you just bitch about the product placement, but this movie is just as bad as those ones are.
Oh, yeah. Marlboro, Coca-Cola everywhere.
Yeah.
I think Lois's brand of cigarettes is Marlboro.
Oh,
you see her
they
chain
have to
smoking.
be. Yeah, they have to be.
And I think
Reds.
they're drinking Cokes at the desks. Yeah.
Just smoking a pack of Reds in the office.
Why not?
What a time.
With your orange juice? What else?
It's healthy.
To wash it down. Oh, man. So, but Superman does lure them away from the city, which is a big complaint of Man of Steel.
That's right.
Yes. Why doesn't
That's
Superman
why
lure them
our
away?
friend and past guest Dylan did not like Man of Steel.
Yeah.
It was for that very reason.
Well, they also kind of learned their lesson in Batman versus Superman.
Yeah.
When they're fighting Doomsday at the end, they talk about taking them to Gotham Harbor because there's less structures and less people.
Yeah.
So they kind of learned their lesson there. But yeah, it was a big point of contention for a lot of people. So much destruction.
Although in this movie, when he does leave, he doesn't get a chance to tell everybody, like, I'm luring them away. He just takes off, and everybody's like, what the hell?
And they call him a coward.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, Superman just left us.
Yeah.
And then there's that one bitchy woman in the office that really doesn't like Superman for some reason.
What is her deal?
And she's hot for non. She's like, ooh, that big one.
Yeah. He's just as powerful as Superman.
She likes a strong, silent type.
Yeah, totally. I forget about her. Oh, man.
Lois, fully puts her hand on that woman's face and pushes her away.
Yeah. There's some crazy stuff with the way people get thrown through buildings in this movie, though.
Yeah.
They pretty much just make a new window in the Daily Planet.
Yeah, totally.
I love that supervillains have no respect for doors. Even whenever they fly out and make a new window, but even when they're walking in, Non just walks in
walls.
kicking down walls. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah, totally.
So much sugar glass. It's great.
But yeah, so Superman does eventually lead them back to the Fortress of Solitude with the intention of putting them in the molecule chamber. Right. I love the fact that they fly Lex and Lois on their backs.
Zod carries no one.
No. And so they show Lois on Non's back, so that means that Ursa is carrying Lex Luthor on her back from Metropolis all the way to the North Pole.
Is that just a show of disrespect?
I want to say that they asked Gene to do that scene. And he was like, no.
There's a lot of stuff with him bumbling around the background, climbing down ice walls. And I'm like, is that Gene?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's actually him. Okay. The crazy, Superman crests, cellophane.
The cellophane net.
What is going on?
He just doesn't even peel off. It duplicates.
And
he throws it
just
into a
appears.
cellophane net that does nothing.
No.
Essentially nothing.
It slows him down.
For a second.
Yeah, for a second. There are some powers that they exhibit in this movie that are questionable.
Yeah, well, I love the creating new powers to fit the scene.
Yes. Yeah.
Because at one point they even say you have all the same powers as Superman, but seemingly they have telekinesis.
Yes.
When they pull the gun out of the cop's hand, they point and a white beam comes out of their finger and they pull. It's like, well, I've never seen Superman do that.
Yeah.
And then this fight, the cellophane S is one thing, but then they all seemingly duplicate themselves.
Yeah.
Using, I guess they're just moving really fast, and it seems like, if I'm trying to put some sort of real world.
Yeah.
But then they duplicate themselves. And this is something Superman has done several times before because he says he used to do this in school.
I was like, what? In Smallville? When did you do this
to other children?
Yeah. I thought it was kind of like talking about Krypton, but he couldn't have because he was never there. Yeah, that is weird.
It's the creating powers, and this is a trend that continues throughout the films. In
it
Superman
gets
4,
worse. Yeah,
in 4, Nuclear Man destroys the Great Wall of China. Superman flies behind him and has blue fix-it vision, and he fixes the Great Wall of China.
That scene in particular.
This is a trend that continues through all of the films.
The fix-it vision is just like it kind of reverses time.
And it rebuilds the wall.
And don't get me started on Superman spinning the Earth the other way around and
to reverse time.
Reverse time.
That's not how time works.
Yeah.
You just destroyed the planet.
You don't know. It could.
That would put the Earth off its axis or something.
But that's just
another,
one of those things. Audiences this time just didn't. They're like, exactly.
And that's something that you would have seen in a comic from the 30s.
And I think that's what these films did really well. Is they Superman is wearing a bright, colorful costume. You know, he's doing crazy things like reversing time by flying backwards. It's like people audiences this time just got they're fine. Yeah, that works. That completely works. And I think the costuming choices and everything of these earlier superhero films, I mean, Marvel's kind of getting it now, but the costumes are so I don't know, they're so thick and formed, and where I miss the simple days of a superhero just put on tights.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the Phantom. Going back to the Phantom, Billy Zane was just wearing purple tights.
Yep.
You know?
Totally.
And it worked.
At least
the movie might not have worked, but it worked, you know?
Yeah. At least with Thor, they're giving him a lot of their sleeveless costumes.
Yeah.
They're showing off his arms a lot.
Yeah. I mean, that's
really it.
I think, I've told you guys this before. That's a big problem for me. It's Chris Reeves wasn't the most built guy, but he was in good shape and he wore tights and it looked good on him.
Yeah.
You get to people like Chris Evans, Henry Cavill, these people have just the most impressive physiques, but then we're going to put them in 4 layers of polyurethane. I don't get it.
I mean, and Zack Snyder, who is not afraid of showing the male form in his movies.
He loves a good Tom of Finland reference, that one.
Yeah.
I mean, those gods in Justice League.
Yes. This
that Zeus.
Whew.
That Zeus though.
So and I think with Superman, with Henry Cavill, I think he takes measures to make him shirtless as Clark a lot,
as much as possible. Yeah.
Because that whole resurrection scene, he's just in tattered pants and that's it.
Well, I remember being in the movie theater in 2013 for Man of Steel. When he came from behind that house after he saved the oil rig, jogging in his Incredible Hulk tattered pants, and no shirt, it was I was, no joke, in a theater full of almost all women, and I heard them all go, and even myself, I went, damn, that's impressive.
That it's like Mr. Universe, they're carrying the big rock from one point to the other. That's the whole competition. How far can you carry this huge rock?
But it's just so disappointing now to see modern superhero costumes.
Yeah.
Just you don't get to see these impressive physiques. And that's why they put in scenes like Chris Evans trying to hold a helicopter back. It's we got to show those guns off, guys.
Or Chris Evans just chopping wood.
Yeah, for no reason.
I mean...
chopping Hawkeye's, fireplace wood while he talks to Tony.
Punching that punching bag.
Yeah.
Get that first shot of America's ass.
Literally one scene of Paul Rudd in Ant-Man where he was jacked. Every other scene in a costume. Couldn't tell.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, because that's the thing. Especially a guy like Paul Rudd or talking
Kumail,
to Kumail. Yeah. Do they need to get that jacked if they're just going to wear these costumes?
Yeah.
Probably not.
I guess at least in the X-Men movies, Wolverine just wears his muscle tee.
Yeah.
His muscle tank.
He doesn't fully embrace the costume until the end, which he thinks is stupid and makes fun of spandex. He says, what would you rather wear, yellow spandex?
Yeah, maybe.
Kind of. I prefer it, but that's just me.
Yeah, totally. The Superman suit in this movie, too, I feel like there was issues with the color because of the blue screen technology.
Yeah, I think that's why it's a different shade of blue.
Yeah.
But I got to say, this
is it a little more royal.
It's a little lighter, I think.
It's
very
bright.
Lighter.
It's very bright.
Yeah.
I guess it couldn't be darker.
It couldn't go darker.
Yeah. It's more muted, like a lighter blue.
Yeah.
But I got to say, this costume is fantastic. It's comic book accurate.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. And I love the cape.
Yeah, it's great.
I love the cape. Superman's cape is always an issue for me.
Yeah.
As someone who loves Superman, I hated his cape in Man of Steel. I'm glad they went back to a cloth cape versus that leather vinyl thing in Superman Returns.
Leather in Superman Returns. It's so
which
thick.
Has no give. It
So
doesn't
heavy.
look good on
And they
film.
didn't put the S on the Superman cape, right?
No costume on film has had the S on the cape after Lois and Clark.
That's lame.
Okay.
Lois and Clark had it. No one else has it. I love the S on the cape.
Yeah.
But it's for me, one of the big problems is the length. For me, the perfect length is behind the knee.
Sure.
I hated
just going up your calf?
Yeah, I hated Cavill's cape because it touched the ground.
It's so long.
That scene in Man of Steel where he decides to go talk to Zod and he's in the desert, his cape is touching the ground and it's dirty. The bottom is dirty.
It is.
I'm like,
I noticed
like
that when I watched it the other day. He's walking into the ship, and from the back, it's dirty.
I was like, that works for Batman. Batman's cape can drag all day long. That looks cool.
Yeah.
Superman's cape, for me, the perfect length is just behind the knee there, right above the calf.
Yeah. Interesting.
And it's always been a big issue for me. It seems like a stupid thing.
No, yeah.
But it's always like
I like the Shazam, the shorty cape.
The little shorty, yeah. Shorty cape with a hood.
Yeah, Shazam's cape was like to his back.
I thought the costume design in Shazam was fun because they were. I mean, it was kind of winking at the audience of this is sort of your cliched superhero costume, and it just worked with the material.
Well, I felt like they kind of got it. They were kind of trying to pull back to something like this.
And I remember us talking about at one of Ashley from Keep It Weird's parties because the images of that had just leaked online, and just being like, "Oh my god! Like, what is up with this?
It looks crazy.
What is up with this Shazam movie?
Like jacked Zachary Levi.
Yeah. What do you think of Man of Steel costume having no red panties?
To modernize Superman, I don't mind
Yeah.
not having the red
Sure.
undies.
Yeah. I want the red undies. I want the red briefs.
I'm kind of good either way.
Yeah.
I'm not one of these people, like, I have strong opinions about the cape, but I don't have very strong opinions about the undies. As long as there's some sort of red that draws my eye to that area, like a belt or something, which Man of Steel didn't even have that. That's why I like the Hackman suit. He doesn't have the undies, but he's got a red belt. And it kind of draws the eye.
Yeah.
I wonder if they did costume tests with red briefs.
Snyder says they had almost 100 different versions.
I'm sure,
of costume,
yeah.
and they tried. He tried to assure the fans they tried so hard to do the briefs, and it didn't work for what he was doing.
Brandon Routh's briefs are very low waisted.
Yeah, they're almost.
His belt is
almost like Speedo.
His belt is really low.
Go figure.
Yeah,
with that director,
a gay man directed that movie.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, they're almost like a Speedo.
Yeah.
He also has a very. If you notice, he's got a very high collar.
Oh, okay.
It comes up so high.
Yeah.
Whereas Reeve shows a little bit of clavicle.
Yeah. And
so
Cavill's is like super low.
Well, Cavill, you get that chest hair bursting out.
Yep. And Brandon Routh's suit, his Superman insignia is, I feel like it's the smallest on screen.
It is. Yeah. It's the smallest, and it's where we started to get into like the 3D.
Yes, it's like raised. Yeah, it's textured.
He also had a second suit in that movie that we just don't pay attention to.
Really?
At the very beginning, when he comes back from Krypton, he's wearing an all gray suit with no cape.
Huh?
It's a head to toe gray suit, kind of echoing like what they would do later with like the black suit.
Yeah.
It's gray.
Yeah.
No cape.
It's interesting. Also, when I did a Google search right now of Brandon Routh, that weird scuba texture is in that suit.
Yeah.
So that's when they introduced it
in Superman. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I remember there was reading the behind the scenes stuff on that suit. There was a scene where they had to build different suits for him doing different things.
Yeah,
and he lifted one time to lift that car in the scene with like Parker Posey.
Yeah,
yes. I actually really like that suit. It's just too dark for me.
It's dark,
sure.
But he ripped the suit.
Yeah,
and they said that's like crashing a Mercedes. And I was like, oh my god!
This image of Brandon Routh, like he is straight up wearing like Aussie bum swim briefs.
The colors of his suit, the color scheme of his suit, is the same color scheme of like Dark Superman in Superman 3.
Yeah.
I feel like the red is too maroon.
It's too maroon.
Yeah.
The blue is fine.
The blue's good. Yeah.
Whereas I feel like in the in Superman 3 it was like a dirty blue, and he was like dirty blue and purple.
Yeah.
But I think that was also supposed to be their take on Bizarro.
Right. Yeah.
Which works.
Yeah.
For that, but that's also a wild seen. Superman just splits into two different people.
Yeah,
because
that is
of
weird.
Because of bad kryptonite.
Mad. Yeah. I think with these kinds of suits, and you see it in the Batman movies, especially because the first two Burton Batman movies, that suit probably is like a rubber, or something, and rubber does not crease well, so they're cutouts in parts. They're cutouts under the arms.
Yeah, you'll see like when he lifts his arm, there's like a scuba suit kind of underneath it that's like adhered to. Yeah. Because when it when you crease that, it'll pucker,
and then
can't have that.
Later, maybe in the Bale suit and maybe in the Affleck suit, it's almost like a leather jacket material.
Yeah, I don't understand the Christian Bale suit too looks like he's almost wearing something and there's like pieces of armor on top of it.
Yeah, after Begins, his thing became kind of like armor plated.
Yeah,
and I don't know if it's just nostalgia, but I also kind of miss those rubber muscle suits.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're not going to show off the actors' physiques, at least give them like a cool rubber muscle suit.
Right, yeah.
That was the one thing I liked about the Nick Cage version. I mean, we all saw the crazy concept suits and everything, but there's this picture floating around of him in the costume he would have worn on film, and it's a rubber muscle suit straight out of Batman '89, and it actually doesn't look terrible.
Yeah, I remember when we finally saw what the actual suit was going to be. I was like, "That's fine. That's
cool."
It
was just his dopey face and the long hair that made it look bad.
But that was that era of Superman. He had that length of hair, didn't he?
Yeah, he came back from the dead in the comics, and he had a mullet.
Yeah,
and,
and if that weird Kevin Smith and Tim Burton movie would have happened, that would have been released around 98, 99, if that stuck to its release date?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know what I find interesting about casting Superman, talking about Nick Cage and the hair, is that something that the animated movies can do, but I wonder how a live-action movie would do, is casting Superman that big. Because the animated movies, he's like a fucking shithouse like tank guy, like broad shoulders.
I mean,
thick.
Henry Cavill's a pretty big dude, though.
But like Mr. Incredible big.
Sure.
Yeah, but I mean, Henry Cavill when he was cast also wasn't that big.
Yep,
he had just done the Immortals, and he was very lean. He was closer to Chris Reeve size.
Yeah,
he gained that muscle for Superman.
Oh, I forgot about the Immortals. That's another one.
We saw that bullshit in the theater
with some male bodies on display.
Yep.
That's like, is this not Zack Snyder?
It's like Henry Cavill, Luke Evans,
300 vibe,
yeah,
a bunch of men in loincloths.
Definitely.
What's his name from Twilight? Kellen Lutz.
Kellen Lutz, yeah, Lutz. Yeah, that movie's wild. That movie's crazy, but yeah, nothing beats that actor who's Zeus in the Snyder Cut, because that shit is wild.
So it's interesting. We were just talking about on our Starship Troopers episode of actors that are almost too handsome. I think that we were talking about actors like Catherine Van Dien and James Marsden that are just maybe a little too handsome. Can you really buy them as an everyman? An everyman, or like a lawyer or a doctor in a movie, because they're just too handsome. And I think that's maybe part of the problem with Christopher's career after these movies, is that he's just too good looking.
And I kind of wonder if the same thing is going to happen with Henry Cavill.
Sure.
Henry's a very attractive man.
I agree.
I mean, you look at him, he looks like he's chiseled out of marble. And it's like his... Although, or is it the Superman curse?
Yeah, that's another thing.
Is he too good looking? Which he's a very good looking man. I mean, there are so many scenes in this movie where we just close up on those blue eyes.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's insane. But is it the Superman curse, or is it that he's just too good looking?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it's happened to several people who've played Superman who haven't been on that level, like Dean Cain.
Yeah.
I mean, Dean Cain's problematic for other reasons.
Right.
And also just
Brandon Routh.
And also just Dean Cain just kind of has always just read TV actor, too.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But somebody like Brandon Routh is another guy who's 6'4", 6'5".
Yes.
Looks like he does. Congratulations on that face.
Looks like a giant Ken doll.
Yeah. And it's like, and probably even more so in person, reads like, oh, holy shit, you are like...
You are
Yeah,
You are
I'm going to go back to my cave now.
Yeah, you are a very handsome man.
But it's like Brandon Routh has a little bit of a career renaissance right now with the DC television.
Oh, that's right.
universe.
Yeah, and also having another chance to play Superman again, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
I love seeing him suit up again.
So what's going on with this Superman situation?
With the TV show?
It's for
Well, this was for he suited up again as Superman from for a special called Crisis on Infinite Earths.
It was the Infinite Earth Crisis. Okay,
Yes.
this was their.
And what's even more amazing about that is he didn't just suit up to play Superman again. He suited up to play the same Superman from Superman Returns.
Yeah.
The office
That's
that they
crazy.
use when he's playing Clark looks almost identical to the office from the movie. I mean, obviously they didn't have the budget, so they shot in like a corner office, not the big bullpen thing. But there's newspaper stories that you see from Superman Returns like on the wall.
Oh, wow.
So he's getting a literal second chance at playing that character, just an older version of that character. And it was phenomenal.
Yeah.
He looked great. And what was even funnier about it is I love Tyler Hoechlin's Superman. I think he's a great Superman. But you put him next to Brandon Routh, who is much bigger.
Yeah.
And even like older, like he's filled out more.
Yeah.
And he's just like seeing those two Supermen together. I'm like, there's no comparison. There's no comparison.
That's funny. I wonder if HBO Max is ever going to get that.
I really hope so.
Yeah.
There's been talks of him coming back to play that character for an HBO Max series, but I don't know if it's just rumors. I mean, I would love it.
So was Crisis on Infinite Earth part of... I know when they do the crossovers on Flash and Arrow and all of that, it's kind of like one episode's on the Flash and one episode's on Arrow. So you kind of have to find if you want to watch it all. I wonder how that can play out if they were to put that on HBO Max or something.
It's interesting because I didn't think they were even thinking about doing that stuff with HBO Max, but now they have the first 5 episodes of Superman and Lois on HBO Max. So obviously they're looking to that as some sort of distribution route for these shows, because they had made an exclusive deal with Netflix where a week after the show ended, it would be on Netflix.
Oh.
Okay, and Crisis on Infinite Earths was just a separate like TV miniseries that was like the Super Friends of all the CW shows.
It was the culmination of all of their shows thrown together.
That's
They
really
made
cool.
like a Justice League in that miniseries, and it was great.
Yeah. It was right around the time that Endgame came out.
I mean, this came out in
Wasn't it?
this came out in like 2020.
Did it? Oh, I thought it was right when Endgame.
I thought it was 19.
It says
it was 19.
IMDb. It says release date April 28th, 2020.
That's crazy. That's not true. Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like that's nice. I feel like it was definitely pre-pandemic.
Yeah,
so.
it was.
Even this poster kind of looks like Endgame.
Yeah, I think they're really capitalizing on that.
Well, I think they're just doing a lot of great things on television right now.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like, I mean, when you look at streaming services, sure, but like, I honestly feel like with what's happening in the DC Comics characters on film, there are some real winners. I love Wonder Woman. I loved Aquaman. Aquaman was a ton of fun.
Yeah, so much fun.
But I feel like DC is really winning at television.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Marvel has the films,
Yeah.
and they hold that kingdom, and that's great. But I feel like DC is really winning at the films or the television, and their animated films.
Their animated
Their
films
animated
are
films
great.
are really good.
Yeah, super strong.
They're not all winners, but they're
Yeah.
good.
I still just think it's a little bizarre and a missed opportunity that they didn't get the Russo brothers to really rein in. I mean, I guess Zack Snyder kind of did, but I think that just what those newer DC movies needed was a good roadmap. It's like, just do a sequel of like Man of Steel before you jump to Dawn of Justice.
But that's I think that's the problem with Warner Brothers DC is they want that Disney Marvel.
They want that
money
instant gratification
now without
Yeah.
doing the work. It's like, we're getting these huge Avengers films, but what they don't understand is Marvel put in 10 years to get there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, they did the work. You can't just be like, okay, here's a Superman movie, and now in the supposed sequel to Superman, we're just going to introduce the entire Justice League via Lex Luthor watching security footage on the computer, and somehow has already named them all. When Bruce Wayne got that footage, it already said the Aquaman, Flash. They had logos too. He had like a graphic designer make logos for these superheroes.
It's just all of their Marvel end credit scenes.
Yeah, totally.
In one weird scene just to kind of give us the Justice League.
Yeah.
Although I will say with the release of the Snyder Cut, I can see Snyder's vision.
Yeah,
I can
totally.
see what he was going for.
Mm-hmm.
Because the Justice League that was released in 2017 was a mess.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, going back to Superman 2, they brought in Danny Elfman to do the music when they did that 2017. And he brought back his Batman theme, and to a degree, he brought back the John Williams Superman theme.
Yep.
But it doesn't track for me because those aren't these characters.
Yeah.
Superman had a very defined theme in Man of Steel. It's like we didn't need to rewrite that to bring back this theme. Like, this is, to me, this Williams theme is
so good.
Chris Reeve. I mean, John Williams is the master.
That John Williams score for Superman, like, is movie magic.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it just takes you emotionally to, like, the next level when watching a movie like this.
And even the long opening sequence where we get the credits kind of flying at us, and you have this just, like, prolonged Superman theme. I'm in it the whole time. I'm never bored. It's a great theme. And Williams does such a good job of bringing emotion with music. I mean, we've seen it 100 times over. Superman, Star Wars. I mean, he's just got so many great credits.
Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit more about that Superman curse, and also some of these. If you go to Christopher Reeve's Wikipedia page, there's an entire section, Roles Turned Down by Christopher Reeve.
Oh, let's hear some.
And some of them were pre-Superman. So, well, maybe not actually. Right around the same time. American Gigolo and The World According to Garp.
So he would have been the Richard Gere character in American Gigolo.
And The World According to Garp went to his best friend, Robin Williams.
Yeah, they were roomies at Juilliard with each other. They were very close.
I mean, I doubt he was up for the John Lithgow role. But let's see. After those, we got Splash, Fatal Attraction.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah. Fatal Attraction.
I think with Splash, though, it is kind of a thing where they went through everybody.
Sure.
And
like everybody either read or...
No, they all turned it down.
Oh, sure.
It was this mermaid movie.
Do you think it was less comedic?
It might have been, until Tom Hanks came along.
Is it a Beverly Hills Cop situation?
Yeah, probably. And I think a lot of people were just like, "What the fuck? Like, no, I'm not going to do your mermaid movie.
I'm not doing this kid's mermaid movie." Yeah.
So everybody turned it down, and Tom Hanks was the last holdout. Fatal Attraction went to Michael Douglas. Romancing the Stone.
Sure.
Again, Michael Douglas.
I could see you easily putting
I could see him
Christopher in either of those.
He said he got a lot of action movies, and that he was like, didn't think he wanted to be an action star. So Romancing the Stone, Lethal Weapon.
I was going to ask if Lethal Weapon is on there. And also that's
Donner.
That's Dick Donner.
That's Donner. And Body Heat.
Okay.
Yeah. Who directed Body Heat? That was Lawrence Kasdan. And that went to William Hurt. So, yeah, some interesting movies that he turned down. And then post-accident, he was offered Mason Verger in Hannibal.
Oh.
Okay,
which was ultimately played by Gary Oldman. I don't know that he would have been able to do prosthetics.
Yeah,
that would have been too. Yeah, that would have been too much.
Yeah,
they would never have been able to make the cast. First of all, so the they would have had to have changed the whole like burn victim aspect. Of the character.
Yeah. Well, he's
not a burn victim.
It's not sliced off his face.
Yeah, they would have had to have done something, but he turned that down.
That
might have been why he turned it down. Just saying it's we can't do the makeup. But it would have been interesting because he did still act.
He was in a TV movie of Rear Window with Daryl Hannah.
Yeah.
In the late 90s.
Yeah.
And then, of course, he made his return to the Superman universe with Smallville.
Yes. Yeah. And I mean, how fucking tragic, man.
This so sad.
Like, geez Louise. He had like a 4-year-old son with his wife. This is his second wife.
Thrown from a horse when he was horseback riding, right?
2 teenage kids. Yeah. Thrown from a horse, breaks his neck.
It was a spinal cord injury.
Oh, my goodness.
I think it was spinal and lower neck.
Yeah, but like complete
never married either.
Yeah, she stayed with him. And didn't she die like right after he died too?
She died of lung cancer.
Oh my god, that is so tragic.
Ashley's show on Keep It Weird did a little segment of the Superman curse.
Oh, did they?
If you wanted to track down that episode,
yeah.
It's on one of their Holly Weird episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see Hollywoodland?
Yes,
with Ben Affleck.
I did.
That was a good movie.
It was a good movie. I enjoyed it. It's kind of fun seeing Ben Affleck play Batman after I've seen him in a Superman costume.
Right? Yeah, that is interesting.
And Ben Affleck like perfectly cast as George Reeves.
Yeah, and I think he was wearing, when he was in the suit, I think he was wearing some, like something in the suit to bulk him up, because George Reeves was very, like, barrel-chested.
Yes.
But he was cast perfectly, I thought.
Yeah.
So sad.
And George Reeves, is it still a mystery?
It's still up in the air if it's still up in the air if it's suicide or murder.
Unsolved.
Interesting. So this is the Superman curse is that everybody that's played Superman has gone on to tragic ends somehow, or at least their career.
And I think the argument with Brandon Routh is that his career kind of died. But I mean, that's kind of being proven wrong now because he is making a little bit of a comeback.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, several years. He's no longer on Legends of Tomorrow, but several years on a very successful show.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I mean, we'll see what happens with.
I could see Henry Cavill having a post-superhero career, kind of like Chris Hemsworth, of that everything that Chris Hemsworth is in does not do that well at the box office.
Yeah. And I feel like Henry is already pivoting some, but is he playing Superman more? We don't know. He might be done. Right. But, like, we've already seen it with Man from U.N.C.L.E. and Mission Impossible.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, who's to say? I mean, I'm hoping The Witcher is wildly successful. So
that's true. Yeah. And I know that the Witcher is sort of his pet project, that he's just kind of a big geek at heart.
I mean, he's a big old nerd.
Yeah. I mean, he likes to repair computers.
Old, handsome nerd. I mean, talk about God giving with
Sexy
both
nerd.
hands.
Right?
Like, it kind of makes me angry.
I've seen those pictures kind of resurface of him working on the computer
in his tank top,
and it's just too much.
I mean, the rumor is that he almost missed getting the call for Superman because he was doing a raid in World of Warcraft.
Oh, Jesus.
I love that, though.
Like, he's just such a big nerd. He was playing video games and almost missed the chance to be Superman.
But, the thing is, it's like he got so big for Superman. And, like, even in The Witcher, you're just like, oh, my God, he looks
never
crazy.
lost it.
Yeah.
He stayed big.
Yeah.
His body in The Witcher is crazy. Of just how lean he is. How huge, but how lean he is in that movie.
Yeah.
That does not look healthy.
Healthier than me.
But I love all the stories of just, like, Henry Cavill being so ripped that they have to keep redoing his costume.
Yeah, because he keeps busting out of it.
Yeah, they told him to stop putting on muscle for Man of Steel.
Oh, my God.
And then he kept breaking the costume for The Witcher because he's just too big.
Oh, man.
And he tried to lean down for The Witcher, and that's why I said that he looks a little unhealthy, because it's just like, are you like...
Just like his veins are, like, right at the top of the skin.
Are you doing okay?
Yeah. I have to stick him in a hot tub. He'll be fine.
Drink some water.
I didn't watch anything of The Witcher besides the first episode. It was good, but it's
not your
thing. It was just really complicated. That I think that you just have to be immersed in that world to really enjoy the show.
Yeah.
Well, it's got a complicated timeline that the producers have said we're not doing for the second season.
Oh, okay. Cool. Because I think that's kind of what threw us.
Yeah, it's a whole, like, when does this story take place sort of thing. And it all comes together at the end. I really enjoyed it. But, yeah, they won't be doing that in season 2.
Okay. All right.
So, yeah, I guess not. Henry's doing okay with his career right now as far as the Superman curse goes. I mean, Dean Cain was never a great actor.
Yeah.
Besides being problematic in other ways, which you wouldn't find out about until, like, Trump got elected. But,
yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, he came back. He was on a couple episodes of Supergirl playing her father.
Oh, okay. That's
he
interesting.
played Papa Danvers. I can't remember his name. But he was her father on a couple episodes. He kind of came... I love how all of these Superman actors eventually kind of make their way
they go back
to the
it,
Superman universe.
Yeah,
we're just waiting for Terry Garr. Cast Terry Garr.
Hatcher?
Terry Hatcher. We're just waiting for Terry Hatcher.
Yep. She was in Smallville.
She was Lois's mother in Smallville.
That's
because they didn't put old age makeup or anything, so we saw her via videotape.
Oh, sure.
So she got to look,
Okay.
She got to look at all her Terry Hatcher greatness.
Yeah.
Without being old.
When I was a kid, I used to think Terry Hatcher and Phoebe Cates were the same person.
But Terry Hatcher works as the actress who's Lois in Smallville. She works as her mom, I think.
Yeah.
Right?
Wait,
did she play Lois's mom? Or?
No, she was... She did come back in Supergirl as well. Terry
I'm
Hatcher.
sorry. I thought you said she played Lois's mother.
She played Lois's mother in Smallville.
In Smallville, yeah.
In Smallville, yeah.
But yeah, that actress who's Lois in Smallville, I think they kind of work as related. So, I mean, we should probably wrap up Superman 2. I know this is a fun conversation, but
I mean, you know me. Once I get talking about Superman, I could talk all day.
We kind of covered it all. I love it.
This could be a multi-part epic. So we got
it really can.
You got to cut me off somewhere.
Yeah, but as far as the original, the Christopher Reeve Superman movies, is this the best one? Is it better than Superman the movie?
Hard to say because then you start talking about which version of this film is the best one.
Yeah.
Is it Lester? Is it Donner?
Mm-hmm.
I definitely find Superman 2, I always found it more enjoyable than the first Superman movie.
Yeah.
The first Superman movie I love. It gave the world Superman.
It's a little slow.
It is slow. It takes us almost an hour to even get to Superman.
Mm-hmm.
The Krypton stuff, the Smallville stuff, there's a lot there. It's a great film, but it does really work as a two-parter with Superman 2, no matter which version you're watching, Lester or Donner. It works.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like they work as companions together. But if you're just going to watch one,
so
you only have a couple hours.
I was under the impression before we recorded this that the theatrical Superman 2 was bad. It's not bad.
No, it's not.
It's still a great movie.
It's silly, but it's a good movie. I really enjoyed it. It's fun.
Yeah, and then when you watch or when you compare all four of them, like 3 is even sillier. And 4 is just off the rails.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it's like, So I feel like really it's the first 2 that are just kind of like these great movies.
And that's why I think Superman Returns is a good sequel to Superman 2. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of why they retroactively did that. It works as a good trilogy.
Yeah.
Superman 1, 2, and Returns. Because 3 and 4 are wild.
Oh, yeah.
But 4 was also a passion project of Christopher Reeve. That was his story. He said, I'll continue to do Superman movies if I get
that's right. It's like the nuclear weapons thing.
Yeah, if he gets to make a movie about the nuclear arms race.
Yeah. And he has a story credit, doesn't he?
He does.
Yeah. So it's unfortunate that it just didn't turn out.
Yeah.
Was Christopher Reeve the sexual awakening for many young boys? Yes.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the costume, that face, like all of it. And just, how sweet he is as Clark and his acting as Superman. When he is Superman, it's just like, oh my goodness.
The wholesomeness.
Just dreamy. Yeah. But then, at the end of Superman 2, it is kind of a petty move, but when he goes back to the truck stop...
something Superman would not do.
Yeah.
No. And,
I'm glad that he goes back and kicks the guy's ass.
As a kid, when he went back and got his revenge on that guy, I loved it. But as an adult, not something Superman would do.
But when he looks at the cook and he pays him and he says, been working out, and he lifts his arm.
It's like the nerdiest way to pantomime been working out. It's
I love it.
And he pays for the damage.
Yeah.
Wholesome Clark Kent pays for, I'm sorry about the damage, sir, and pays for it.
All he really did was mess up a pinball machine, but those can be probably pretty pricey, I would
he
imagine.
broke some plates, but not a big deal.
Yeah. Not like the first time around. But yeah, I think definitely Chris Reeve's portrayal of Clark and Superman is a lot of young people awakening.
It's iconic.
Yeah, for sure. We love it.
It's the gold standard of what a superhero film should be.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think they're all they all owe a debt.
And especially if you're maybe a little too overwhelmed or consumed with the stuff like the MCU, the new DC movies. Put on any of the original Superman movies that are on HBO Max. Like they're... A revisit of these is very refreshing.
Yeah, we don't always need this like huge multi-film connected universe. Just something fun. These are fun films.
Yeah.
To this day and age, they're fun.
Totally. Yeah, we love it. We definitely recommend watching these movies. If you haven't seen them in a long time, check them out.
Or if you sadly haven't seen them at all.
Exactly.
Yeah, like I was mentioning at the top of the show, these were movies that I did not grow up on, and I think that's the case with a lot of people my age or younger. That these Donner movies just sort of slip through the cracks of our childhood.
Yeah, it's at a certain point, it's like going back and watching classic films. A lot of times people don't think about it; they just watch the modern stuff. Or they go back and watch the oldies like Spider-Man and X-Men. It's like no,
and those are what's crazy is that the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie and the original X-Men movies are old movies.
Yeah.
For young people now.
Those movies are 20 years old now.
Yeah.
So, I mean...
Those are the classics for the kids.
Oh, God. I can't.
That's crazy. But yeah, I mean, these are even older, but they're out there. Yeah, and yeah, all these modern superhero movies definitely owe a debt to Richard Donner and Richard Lester. His name's Richard, isn't it?
Richard, yeah. Another Richard,
Lester.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. And definitely Christopher Reeve. These movies are amazing. But yeah, this has been a lot of fun talking about Superman 2.
It was a fun episode.
Yeah.
Very fun.
And again, there's so much that we haven't even touched on, but we could
so much.
keep talking. But thanks so much, Billy, for coming on again.
Thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed it. Any chance I get to talk about Superman.
I knew you'd be a good fit for this episode.
Yeah. Maybe we'll do Superman 3 someday.
Oh, God. I mean, I'd come back for the 3, 4.
4, yeah.
I mean, we didn't even scratch the surface of Mark Pillow.
No. And 4 is Quest for Peace?
Quest for Peace.
Okay. Peace. That's it.
It's got that zany date.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the date.
Which one has the crazy opening to it? Is it 3?
3 has just all this crazy shit going on in Metropolis.
Mm-hmm.
What is going on in Metropolis? With the guy like stuck in the taxi and he's on top of a.
I think it's Gus Gorman's bad luck following him everywhere.
Oh yeah,
he's walking through Metropolis and he's like
That's
a bad
exactly
luck
what it is.
genie. Everything's just going wrong around him. It's
super
weird.
Super weird. Oh my goodness. Again, well maybe we'll return to Superman in the future. And Billy, you're definitely welcome back for any of those episodes.
Oh, thank you.
Oh man, but until then, we'll see you next time, Billy. And thank you so much for listening, everybody.
Fun episode.
Superman 2.
I love Billy.
Yeah, Billy's a great guest.
Mm-hmm.
We love you, Billy. I love Superman 2. I love Christopher Reeve. I love Ursa.
She's fierce.
General Zod. Great movie. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. We have some Patreon shout-outs, and we have a new patron. We would love to say hello to our brand new patron, Charlie.
Thanks, Charlie.
Oh, my goodness. Charlie, thank you for being a friend. Thank you for subscribing to our Patreon. And also, thank you to all of our regular patrons, Heather, Muffy, Paul, Jamie, Drew, Jimmy, Genevieve, Dawn, Josh, Emma Melly, Aaron, Melinda and Jim, Jessica, John, Nick, Christine, and Rufino. Thank you for being a friend,
Thank you so
everybody.
much.
Thank you so much. Head over to our Patreon for lots of additional content. Patreon.com/movies that made us gay. We've got some Watch With Us commentary tracks where you can listen along as the two of us talk over our favorite movies.
And I've been doing a thing where I will put the full uncut episode if we run a little longer on our Patreon.
Yes,
too.
indeed. Yes, indeed. For example, the Starship Troopers episode, we went very long on that.
And the Superman episode, I have a feeling is going to
yes, indeed.
going to go up on Patreon in its entirety.
Yes, indeed. And also, we are coming very close to our 100th movie.
We're getting there.
Our 100th episode. I can't believe we're getting there, but we are. And to celebrate our 100th episode celebration extravaganza, we will be doing a free Watch With Us commentary track. Mm-hmm. So if you are not currently a patron or you don't subscribe to our Patreon, you can head over to the Patreon page and there will be a Watch With Us commentary track for 10 Things I Hate About You. That will be part of the 100th episode celebration week, and that will be free. You won't have to be a patron, a subscribing patron, but you will still be able to listen. You just have to do it through the Patreon website or the app. Very easy. And it'll give you a little taste for what our commentary tracks are. And if you like what you hear, then go ahead and hit subscribe, and you'll be able to listen to a lot more fun stuff. We would also love it if you would rate and review us on Apple Podcasts.
You'd like 5 stars.
Yes, indeed. Please hit 5 stars, and also
Smash
write us
it to the right.
review. Yeah.
Yep.
Write us a review if you like us, and if you write us a good review, we'll read it on an upcoming episode. How about that? Promise. So go over to Apple Podcasts and do that. We would love it if you'd follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Movies That Made Us Gay.
And Twitter at MTMUG Pod.
Yes, indeed. My name is Pete.
And I'm Scott.
I am on Instagram and Twitter at Peter Lasagna and Letterboxd at Peterific.
I always love when I try to say and Scott because I think that we're doing our intro. This is the outro. Anyways, I'm Oscar Scott on Twitter, Scott Youngbauer on Instagram, and just Scott Youngbauer on Letterboxd. See what I'm watching.
Yes, indeed. Thanks so much for listening, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.